some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob met his handler in Quebec City.
talk you through all this.
Good morning. Now let's get to the trains, please.
Two. Check two. It's train time. It's the train hour, as it's known. Everyone knows that this is the main focus of this program, and that's what we're going to be delivering today, just as we do every day. We're going to be talking trains. The Train Gang. TRRS is the Railroad Show. Thank you. That's what it is. That's what that acronym stands for. That's right. The pre-show went better. I was watching for a bit, Lodane. I was watching. You don't think I was watching? I was watching. I'm always watching. Remember. Hype trains, maybe. And by speaking of, Dakadoon, thanks so much for the 13 months of... The 13 months resub at tier 3. Thank you, Dakadoon. Said Rob met his handler in Quebec City. Not true. Don't have a handler, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Thank you, 10,000 sandwiches as well for the 19 months resub at tier 2. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
To you, and thank you to Comrade Social Distancing for the 2 gifted subs as well. Everyone's hyped to talk about trains today. Everyone is very hyped to talk about trains. That tweet that I did is really going viral. After the first few minutes of that, I was like, oh, that's probably going to... It feels like that's going to hit 100K. And now it seems like it's going to be bigger than that. A viral tweet over here, folks. We can actually take a look at it if you want to. Look at that. Your boy's doing viral tweets. A little over an hour. 52K in a little over an hour. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Pretty wild shit. But seriously though, just build a train. Why do we keep proposing stuff like this? What is this? What is this? What the fuck is this thing? There's still traffic. Even in this like idealized future world, there's still traffic. There's still gridlock traffic. What is this? Look, this looks so dangerous. Why would you go to this beach? Why would you ever do this? This looks horrible. You're just having a nice day at the beach and get crushed by this like giant people disc going by. How does it balance? Of course, the outside the cities is all desertified in the future that this is depicting. Nothing grows anymore, of course. Just ruin a good beach. A big, giant, shady disc just like going over you. And it's still gridlock traffic, so nothing is being improved. Clearly, even in this idealized vision, even in this idealized future vision, nothing is being improved. There's still traffic. So what is being accomplished here? It hasn't led to any reduction in traffic. It goes on wheels now too. Yeah, this looks really sturdy. And a hurricane is just going to get turned into a big giant flying multi-ton frisbee filled with people. What a stupid idea. Apparently it's this like German tech company that just
makes all kinds of weird proof of concept videos. It just seems like at a certain point, it's like we're doing everything we can to just not build a train. Like it almost feels intentional at this point. Like it's funny to them to just keep proposing non-train solutions. It just seems like it's become a big joke to just keep proposing non-train solutions. We're going to propose anything but a train. We're going to build tunnels in the ground and you're going to send single electric vehicles in there. Oh yeah, they're going to be tunnels in the ground and there's going to be single electric vehicles just taking people through the tunnels. Why don't you put a fucking train in there then? Then you can put more people. How about that? We already have tunnels. Instead of having one vehicle with like 3 or 4 people inside, you can put a few hundred people in there. Wouldn't that make more sense? This technology that exists now, that exists today, doesn't it make more sense to use that? It's a tough sell for inventors to admit that ideas from hundreds of years ago are still the best ideas. God damn, we'd solved this. We literally solved this issue hundreds of years ago. And here we are, it's 2022. China has built so many hundreds of thousands of kilometers of high-speed rail over the last 10, 15 years. What are we even doing? What are we even doing? We're investing in failed tech companies that produce nothing. And just like dumbass ideas like this. All that time, all the resources and time we could have been putting into building train infrastructure, we've gone into creating proof of concept CGI videos for fake technology that does not and will never exist. Thank you, Duga Dog. Thank you for stopping by. Look at that. I put a Twitch link on my viral tweet, and I've got two whole brand new followers from it. Happy for both of you, by the way. Not taking anything away from that. I agree with Rob, but I think we need to reinvent the wheel first, then reinvent the train. Have we tried making the train like square? What about that? The wheel. Have we tried making the wheel square? Jesus. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Hello. Here's from Carl Jha. I mean, I was just thinking about this yesterday because, as you know, I went to Quebec City yesterday. Which I'm going to talk about today. I went to Quebec City. I wanted to just, rather than drive 3 hours to Quebec City and then drive 3 hours back immediately after, I wanted to just take a leisurely train ride to get there. Unfortunately, it's more expensive to take the train. It takes longer.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
There's no train Rob. At night. You know, what I would like to have a affordable, subsidized, high-speed train that takes me to the destination that I need to go in a faster amount of time than it would take to drive and at less cost. Even with gas as expensive it is right now, it's $2.20 per whatever. I don't know. I can't remember the measurement in Canada. Gas is $2.20 right now. And even with that, it was still cheaper to fill up my gas powered car and drive the entire time. Thank you, Moss World, for the 15 months of Tier 1. For me to take public transportation to Indiana to pick up my car, it was going to cost twice as much and take 5 days. I lived in Japan for a year and I'm so spoiled on trains now. So glad I found this channel. Okay, so Crispy Cripsy, I don't want to disappoint you, okay? I'm going to be honest with you right now. We don't talk about trains like all the time. It comes up a lot, but don't get me wrong. We talk about high-speed rail. We talk about China's infrastructure, high-speed rail infrastructure. We talk about rail as a possible sort of climate solution. I'm going to just be honest with you, that's not the entire focus of this entire show. Just so you don't get any ideas about this. I am happy you're here, though. And we do talk about it sometimes. Doesn't talk about trains enough, in fact. Maybe we could do more. Yeah. We are all train gang. That is true. Yeah. Even the trains that you have to get out and push that we hear about in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So that's what I mean. Quebec City, what? It's like 300 kilometers away. I should be able to get on a cheap train to Quebec City that travels at least 200 kilometers per hour. And that gets me to the destination faster than it would take to drive. Unfortunately, we do not have this infrastructure in Canada. And this is Gwangju subway now travels faster than the fastest train in the US. How embarrassing. Funny music to go along with it. 157 kph. It looks so nice, yeah. We could have this. We could have this. The reason we don't have this has been very specific political decisions. I move this white claw that I've got up on my... Realize that was there. Okay. It's not even that complicated. No, I know. That's what I was... I mean, the last time this came up, that's what I was saying. Like, if you want to build big infrastructure projects like that, you have to just start. That's our problem. We haven't started. We haven't started any of this stuff. Like I was saying, when it comes to building green infrastructure, you have to build that stuff in advance before the big crises happen, right? You don't wait until the last moment and then say, we should build high-speed rail because it takes time. No, what you should do is have some kind of plan in place. Like for instance, imagine an amazing, incredible country that had spent the last 15 years not building one of the most significant infrastructure projects in modern human history, spending the last 15 years doing this. And lo and behold, now they have a world-class high-speed rail system. And now, in the future, when we transition into more of the zero emissions future, away from cars, lo and behold, that infrastructure is there. It's built already. They already built it. They're not going to get to the point where it's like, we need to start doing something about climate, like as like whole cities are just on fire. Maybe we should build some trains. No, the time to do that was actually years ago. Not the moment that you see an issue developing. It's also cheaper if you have continual development, since people will keep the experience literally improve efficiency and make it even cheaper over time. And it's also, these massive infrastructure projects provide good jobs for people. Lo and behold. It's kind of a win-win scenario. Please also show this video from China. They opened a railway loop circling a desert. I want to take a few months traveling through China so bad. Yeah, me too. I absolutely do as well. been train time. You're right. I guess we can talk. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Did I miss the Oliver Stone talk? No, you didn't. We're doing the train hour. It's the new thing that this show is about. It's like I was joking around saying like, oh, we don't talk about trains all the time, but we kind of do also. We do actually talk about it quite a bit. We are big train heads here. There's no denying that. Absolutely no denying that. Here's that country by country speed rail comparison animation. We watch this, I think, every time this comes up. Worth watching again though. Worth watching again. It turns out you can do this. You can just build infrastructure. You can just decide to start building it and then build like a ludicrous historic amount. You can do that. When you have a government that actually is like able to do stuff, you know? I know in our wonderful Western liberal democracies that we love to lecture everyone about, real democracy is when you have all these parties that all are working in opposition with one another to ensure nothing ever happens. I know that's real democracy. When you have all these opposing forces that are just like not ever doing anything. I know it's really scary and authoritarian when you have a government that can just like do stuff that helps the people that live in the country. I know it's a crazy concept and it's scary to people. You know, when the government can just decide to like, we're going to build hundreds and hundreds of thousands of high-speed rail infrastructure, and they just decide to do it, and they do it. What an amazing! I know it's very scary. It's very scary and authoritarian the way this happens, but it is also pretty interesting to see these other styles of government where it turns out you can do stuff sometimes. Our superior Western democracy where you can never do anything. That's obviously the better system, but you know, there's other options out there. It's worth paying attention to that. We like our slow trains, Jack.
In America.
'97, still no China. Not 1 kilometer of rail built. 2000, still nothing. Yeah, France did some stuff. Good for them. USA. There's China. Well, China has entered the chat. China has entered the chat. What's this? Oh, there you go. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. You can do this. You can actually have a government that decides to do this. You can have a government that just is able to do stuff. I know it's a crazy concept to people, but it's true. Pretty amazing. I don't know. Yeah, this came up the last time we talked about this, Ben. While there's private investment in these rail systems, the investors have been losing tons of money, effectively meaning private capital is subsidizing public infrastructure. Yeah, and that's exactly what I pointed out the last time this that this came up. And for people that say like, well, we shouldn't support China because it's capitalist, and it's really like the opposite of our model, right? Where we have in Western style capitalism, you have these publicly subsidized, privately profitable system, like Tesla. Tesla is publicly subsidized, privately profitable. We've been dumping money into this fake company that builds nothing for now 10 fucking years, rather than doing any of this. And so they can privately profit from that, and he can personally privately profit from it. And then, lo and behold, in China, when it comes to this high-speed rail system, it's the opposite. It's privately subsidized, publicly profitable, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's more the way we should be doing that. Like I saw that guy complaining about high-speed rail going like, well, it's not as good as everyone makes it out to be. It's not even profitable. All these like Chinese like private investors are losing their hundreds of billions of dollars in debt. And it's just like, where's the problem? Where's the issue? I don't see a problem. That is the point. Yeah. Who cares? I don't care. Dan Boxes has so many pro-China, so much pro-China propaganda just in the clip at all times. And I respect it.
In America, you can change political parties, but you can't change the policies. In China, you cannot change the party, but you can change policies. So in the 65 or 66 years, China is being run by one single party, yet the political changes that have taken place in China in this past 66 years have been wider and broader and greater than probably any other major country in modern memory.
So in that time, China ceased to be communist. Is that what you're saying?
Well, China is a market economy, and it's a vibrant market economy, but it is not a capitalist country. Here's why. There's no way a group of billionaires could control the Politburo as billionaires control American policymaking. So in China, you have a vibrant market economy, but capital does not rise above political authority. Capital does not have enshrined rights. In America, capital, the interest of capital and capital itself has risen above the American nation. The political authority cannot check the power of capital. And that's why America is a capitalist country, but China is not.
Just build some damn trains, people. How hard can it be? How hard can it be? Thank you, Ben. No, it's not profitable. That's the whole thing about not doing things for the profit motive. That's kind of the whole point of that. You know? I can't stop laughing about my dumbass friend who's terrified of a Chinese invasion of Central Europe. Talking about threatening me with a good time. It's like, yeah, you think China's so good now. Wait till China in 10, 15 years are coming here and building roads and hospitals and building rail here. You're not going to find it so funny then, will you? And it's like, I will support that as well. I have no problem with that. I have no issue with that at all. Just wait until China comes here and makes it affordable for you to go to the dentist for the first time in a decade. Yeah. Stop threatening me with a good time. I also feel like public transport should be accessible to the broader public, not prohibitively expensive. What a concept. What a crazy concept. Public infrastructure that is usable by the public, you say? Wild. What a wild idea. What a wild idea. Anyway, folks, as I started off talking about the reason, because I went to Quebec City last night, and I was really frustrated by this as I was driving down to Quebec City, because I was like, I'm driving 3 hours to go to this event in my gas-powered car, then driving 3 hours back. Why is it so difficult for me to just take a goddamn train? You know, it's frustrating. But why was I going to Quebec City? Well, it was to see a Q&A with none other than Oliver Stone, filmmaker Oliver Stone, who directed the film Platoon, Wall Street, Natural Born Killers, JFK, of course. He had just screened his most recent documentary, JFK Revisited. And so ostensibly the Q&A was supposed to be about that, and they touched on Kennedy a bit, but it was really wide-ranging. So, again, I'm a journalist. I'm a media personality. So when I saw that this event was going on, we talk about, did Ukraine on Fire got brought up? Yes, it did. Outrun. I'm gonna tell you all about this. It was really interesting. I was happy I went. When it was like yesterday, when it was about time for me to leave, I really started to having the second thoughts. I'm like, do I have to do this? Do I have to drive 3 hours to go to this event? And then immediately drive 3 hours to come back home. I started like trying to talk myself out of it. But as I said, I'm a journalist. I'm a media personality. When I heard that this Q&A was going on, because we talk about the JFK assassination a lot on this show, because I think it's an interesting kind of inflection point where America kind of went in a certain direction, particularly American foreign policy. And, you know, whereas it may have, with JFK not being killed, it may have possibly gone in a different direction, maybe slightly less evil, which obviously was too much to ask for the fucking Nazis in charge of the national security establishment and the intelligence community in the United States. So when I heard this was going on in Quebec City, I just reached out. I was like, can I get a press pass to this? Like, I'm a journalist. I got a big it was a soft coup. Yeah, no, it was. I have a big media platform. So, I got in. I got press passes. And I almost talked myself out of going, but I stuck with it, and I was happy that I did. I'm here from your tweet to support the trains. Okay, thank you, Wild Wesley. I appreciate that. You did, unfortunately, just miss train talk. We had a good 30 minutes of train talk, and now we're moving on to the Oliver Stone Q&A that I saw last night. But thank you for showing up. I'm glad you could stop by, and please feel free to continue watching the stream. We're in the Stone Zone. Did you wear TRRS merch? No, I did not. Okay, so how to get started? I guess the first thing I wanted to talk about was maybe to talk about the actual documentary, because the night before I watched I hadn't seen JFK Revisited, and I did watch it Tuesday night. Did anyone watch that? The trailer here.
What kind of a peace do we seek? Not merely peace for Americans, but peace
trailer
for
for the
all men
film.
and women. Not merely peace in our time, peace in all time.
I did have a lanyard, yes. Trains
The
are still in
flash,
my heart. And mine as
apparently
well.
official, President Kennedy died some 38 minutes ago.
Here is the suspect.
24-year-old Lee H. Oswald.
I'm just a patsy. President.
Who actually fired the shots that killed Kennedy? Was there a conspiracy?
In the years since the Warren Report, there is now so much more that we know. Conspiracy theories are now conspiracy facts.
The Warren Commission successfully deceived the public.
Allen Dulles' appointment to the Warren Commission is one of the great frauds of American history.
Documents are withheld by the FBI.
The guy that the Nazi sympathizing former CIA boss that Kennedy publicly fired and feuded with gets put on the commission investigating his assassination and determines that lo and behold the CIA had nothing to do with it. And it was just this lone nut, this lone gunman.
The CIA.
Intelligence agencies did all the wrong things if they were looking for conspiracy.
We will go back and piece together new facts and evidence that shed more light on what really happened here that day.
The Commission believes that the same bullet that hit Kennedy hit Conley. Well, I don't believe it.
It is indeed a magic bullet.
Oswald was a figure of interest for 4 years.
I did watch the
before
doc before the night before.
They were reading his mother's mail.
They had
His
eyes
first
on
year in
Oswald
office,
up
Kennedy
until, like,
made
the week
many
before, when they
enemies.
He
conveniently stopped
vowed he's
paying
going to
attention him.
shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces.
Have you ever committed any act of violence?
He was intimately involved in the cover-up.
Dulles. All time.
Once you kill a president on the streets of American City,
American villain.
that sends a signal.
The rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened.
If America really wants a democratic society, and we should get to the bottom of this traumatic crime that continues to reverberate throughout American history.
This nation will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
So yeah, I did watch the documentary the night before. It was pretty good. I didn't love it. It's interesting. It's almost like the actual documentary. It's almost like two documentaries. I think when it's there's some really amazing like restored footage from the 60s, super high def restored footage, which looks amazing. Anytime it's using that like historical footage and like, putting the narrative together using that and just using voiceover narration, I thought it works. My issue, I think, with the new documentary is that Stone leans too much on these kind of like JFK researchers who just come off as being kind of cranks. I think whenever it starts interviewing these JFK obsessed people that have been combing the archives for decades and devoted their whole lives to figuring this stuff out, it just takes a nosedive in quality, and it kind of gets into that kind of like Discovery Channel level quality, which just it's just not as compelling, I don't think, when it's not like the first person accounts. Yeah, that's when it started to lose me, and I think sometimes it fixates on certain details, which ultimately I didn't find that real compelling. You know, one of the most amazing pieces of footage in this clip, in this documentary rather, is there's a clip of Allen Dulles, and they after the Warren Commission released its report. And this was kind of the most revealing moment for me in this movie. They ask Allen Dulles, like, is there anything in these, there's all these redacted files. There's all these redacted documents. Is there anything in there that's going to change people's view of the case? And Dulles was like, and frankly, when Allen Dulles said this, I actually agree. I believed it. He was just like, no, I think that all the information is out there for everyone already. And like with that's already been released, and everyone can get to the truth of it from that. And that I actually agree with. I think in many ways, Stone has been he's like chasing he's on this wild goose chase of these declassified documents. And I think in many ways, the slow roll declassification process of like decades of these JFK files, I think in many ways, it's been a way to kind of like dilute the conversation around it. You have all these people kind of waiting and looking for clues in these documents.
You can count on me
when I think
good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank me for my service.
Ephemeral Friends, thank you for the 14 months of Prime. Very much appreciated, Ephemeral Friends. I think in many ways, though, that Dulles was right, which is that all the information is out there already. And like, there are certain things that have been revealed in these redacted documents, but ultimately I think the most compelling argument, and the reason JFK, the film, Oliver Stone's film JFK, was so successful is because I think it lays out the whole case there. And like, there's nothing that's in these redacted documents that are going to like really add or subtract from that in any way. Right? Number one, who was it? Oswald? He couldn't have done the shooting. The guy couldn't do the shooting. That's what they say in the film. The two sequences in that film that are incredibly convincing. Not only the difficulty of Oswald doing the shot and doing the shooting in the first place, but also this sequence with Donald Sutherland explaining the like powerful forces in the military-industrial complex and how they benefited from JFK being removed. And so with that information, plus just the Zapruder film and the thing that we can all see, you know, they say in the film, like, they're going to have all kinds of scientists and other people telling you why someone that gets hit like that and moves like that, why it was actually coming from another direction or whatever. But like, you can just see the clip. You can just watch it, and it's very obvious what goes on. There is some interesting, like, he's driving along, he's hit in the throat once, he's going like this, and then this next shot takes the top of his head off. You know, it's not that complicated. And that's the basic storyline. Beyond that, I mean, it's like you're just kind of like shoveling on more and more little details and this kind of factoids over something that's really a fairly simple concept for people to understand, I think. Yeah, the magic bullet. I mean, they do take time in this documentary to talk about that as well. I mean, and interviewing. I mean, that's another basic fact of the case, is that so many medical nurses and doctors that viewed the body, what they described as entrance wounds and exit wounds, you know, they all described a big, massive, gaping wound at the back of his head, which is like indicative of an exit wound. And they also, he had a bullet hole here in his throat. He's seen in the Zapruder film clutching his throat. The original doctor identified that as a bullet wound, and then eventually was kind of strong-armed into undermining his own testimony and saying, "Oh no, I was confused, and it was an exit wound." The bullet they found on a stretcher. Yeah, they literally someone just found this bullet lying on a stretcher. Which, by the way, this is the whole magic bullet idea, which is also talked about in this film a lot. So you've got a bullet hole in Kennedy, like his upper back, like on his upper back area, right? I can't point to it. I'm going to pull my arm out of the socket. So what they say happened is that, you know, in these 3 shots, they found that Carcano rifle in the book depository building and 3 shells. So they're working backwards from 3 shots. And if we ever admit that there was more than that, that indicates that it was something else going on beyond just this one guy in the book depository building. So you've got one bullet hole in like the back of Kennedy's back, which they then suggested went through his back, passed through his throat here, causing him to do this, and then went. And what was the governor's name? JFK, the governor of Texas, that also was shot. John Connally, the governor of Texas. So it goes into his back, the middle of his back, comes out his throat, and then hits John Connally like 5 different places, and just rattles all around in there, breaking his wrist and going through his chest, and so this bullet, which ended up in Connally, like according to the official narrative, according to the official Warren Commission narrative, this bullet that passed through Kennedy's back, through his throat, into Connally fucking 5 or 6 times. That's the bullet that they found on the stretcher where JFK's body was. And they initially said the bullet came from his body, but like that's completely out of sync with the storyline that they're trying to tell about where the bullet ended up in Connolly and then somehow magically was just found on JFK's stretcher. It was like an air hockey puck, yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's like this to me is like the compelling parts of this case. I think sometimes when you go down these sort of rabbit holes of looking into these different redacted documents and unredacted documents, I think it kind of takes away actually from the simplicity of it. The guy couldn't do the shooting. The bullet doesn't make any sense. And it was the intelligence community and the military industrial complex wanted him out of the way. You know, there's all kinds of stuff about JFK's autopsy, the brain. Like they think that his brain was like switched somehow. They like took a brain out of formaldehyde and switched it and used that in the autopsy. The brain from the autopsy has nothing missing, even though clearly in the video you can see fucking pieces of brain like flying all over the place when he gets clearly shot in the head. And the brain that they used in the autopsy was fully intact and weighed like more than the average human brain. This is tangential, but what's with the QAnon JFK rising from the dead theory? It's so bizarre, but if you wanted anyone asking questions to look like a crank, well, that's part of it as well. And I wanted to ask Oliver Stone about this last night. Unfortunately, at the Q&A, my phone died, and I just kind of chickened out. I think if my phone had battery and I would have been able to capture it, I would have not chickened out and I would have asked a question, but because I couldn't even film it or record it, I just didn't bother. And I do regret it a little bit, but I wanted to ask him about this very thing. Anyway, so I didn't love the documentary. You know, I love the film JFK, and especially the sequences which we've watched on this show. I think are just incredibly compelling to cast doubt on what actually happened, and to talk about the motives of what was behind this sort of soft coup. Like JFK himself, I've heard JFK Jr. No, it's been absorbed into the QAnon myth. And so JFK Jr. and JFK are both alive. JFK is like 100 years old or whatever. And he's going to come back and go back to being the president. It's okay. We'll get you a nice backup battery for this kind of field reporting. We'll get him next time. Yeah, honestly, Lodane, I had another phone. I have a backup phone, and I tried to charge it prior to it so I could do all the filming with the backup phone, and it did not work. I guess it's just not taking charges anymore. This to me, I mean, we've watched this scene many times. This to me is the most compelling argument about the JFK assassination being a conspiracy. And that's why I think this documentary is a little bit, I don't think it really added much to this conversation that wasn't already firmly established in the film JFK. I enjoyed the documentary, but I didn't really love it. But this is the clip. I think that is it's very, very compelling. The basic facts of the case. The guy couldn't do the shooting.
Yeah.
No one could have done it.
I'm Oswald. Time me.
Maybe Oswald was one of the shooters that got Kennedy in the back. That's entirely possible. Maybe not even that, though. He was maybe just in the building and then they planted the rifle and the shells in there as well. I think part of it is that Oswald thought that he was part of some op to frame anti-Castro, or no, to frame pro-Castro activists as being as like a foiled assassination plot. I think that's what Oswald thought was going on, and then realized as soon as the assassination happened, there was like, oh shit, I'm being set up to take the fall for this.
Go. Time?
Between 6-7 seconds.
And that's without really aiming. Key is the second and third shots came almost right on top of each other. It takes a minimum 2.3 seconds to recycle this thing. The other problem is there was a tree there, blocking the first 2 shots. By the time they kerned the Zapruder film.
Didn't J. Edgar Hoover say something about that? Leaves are falling off in November?
It was a Texas live oak, Chief. It sheds its leaves the first week of March.
There's a fucking tree there.
So you take this Carcano, world's worst shoulder weapon, and you try to hit a moving target at 88 yards through heavy foliage? No way.
I mean, see, this is why I love this scene though, because there's no redacted document that you could find. There's no like JFK conspiracy crank that can talk about this. That's going to be more compelling than this basic argument of just like the guy couldn't do it. It's just not possible. It's not possible to fire 3 shots in that amount of time and to score two direct hits, including one that resulted in like multiple direct hits with 1 shot. And one that's just a perfect shot taking the guy's head off. It's just not possible. That's way more compelling than I think any conspiracy crank or any like unredacted document that's going to be revealed. It never happened. It's a total fabrication. He clearly had aim assist cranked all the way up. That's right. Hello, Brandon. Thank you for saying that. I love you too. Thank you, Brandon. This to me is just the most compelling argument, and it kind of renders the whole new documentary, I think, kind of useless. This is the fundamental part of the case that I think is just really hard to argue with.
Yeah. FBI tried 2 sets of tests. Not one of their sharpshooters could match Oswald's performance. Not one. And Oswald was at best a medium shot. The scope was defective on it too. I mean, this is the whole essence of the case to me. The guy couldn't do the shooting.
The guy couldn't do the shooting.
And they sold this lemon to the American public.
This Zapruder film is the proof they didn't count on, Lou. We gotta get our hands on it.
That means we have to subpoena Time Live.
Let me ask you something, Lou.
Here's the question as well. Here's where it gets creepy.
Houston. There's plenty of time.
Why wouldn't you just get him coming out? You got a clean shot right there. Why wait? No tree in the way. And this is so when the fucking is my gain already on? And what is this? When the John Williams music cue kicks in here is fucking tremendous.
It's out in the open.
I know, I keep asking myself the same thing.
It's a frontal shot.
Even if you miss him for the first shot, if it accelerates, you still got him for the second
Why
shot.
wait?
The only reason for waiting to get him on Elm is you got him in a triangulated crossfire. You put a team there, down at the fence, for a frontal shot, flat, low trajectory. Put a third team down here in this building here on a low floor.
Oh, encouraging people. This is one of the all-time best John Williams scores. I love it. It's a turkey shoot. That's it.
He gets the kill zone there. It's a turkey shoot.
How many men?
Okay. Now, 1 shooter, say 1 spot on a radio, maybe 3 teams. I'd say these professional riflemen too, Chief. They're serious people. Hunters. Patient. Takes skill to kill with the rifle, Chief. You gotta figure that's why there's been no execution of a chief executive with one in 200 years. 3, 2,
1. Unironic chills. I know. Same with me, Sean. Every time. Every fucking time. Yeah, Brandon, we're talking about JFK because last night I went to Quebec City to see the filmmaker Oliver Stone to give a Q&A about his JFK documentary, JFK Revisited. I was just doing a little kind of quick review of the documentary. I watched it. I didn't love it. I think, like I said, I think it's a little bit unnecessary. And I think this rabbit hole of unredacted documents and talking to these kind of conspiracy cranks, I think is a little bit of a dead end. It's kind of a wild goose chase. that I think detracts from the basic story, which is very easy to get people to understand. And I think there's times in this new documentary where it seems like wacky conspiracy stuff, even if the story is really compelling. We can get into the thing later with Donald Sutherland and who benefits and all that. This movie and the JFK assassination in general are kind of have become central parts of the mythology of this program. So we talk about it a lot. That's why I wanted to take the opportunity to see Oliver Stone, precisely because we talk about this so often on the show. I gotta read this one. I mean, I'm making my way through my book list right now, but I gotta read The Devil's Chessboard because I think a lot of the theory that's laid out in this film about Allen Dulles and the intelligence community and the national security establishment and their role that they played in this is outlined in this book. The first TRRS stream I watched live, you were covering JFK. It brings a lot of people in there. I mean, I think and Stone touched on this last night as well. I think it's compelling because it's really once you can get people to understand that there's something else going on here, and it's not difficult to get people to understand that, you realize the extent of like what people in power in the United States are kind of capable of. And like Stone was saying, just the fact that Oswald was assassinated, I think for most people that's their indication that there's something going on. When the murderer gets murdered himself, it's clearly there's a cover up going on. Most average people can kind of just understand this basic idea. Okay, so let's go back here for a moment. I'm setting the stage now for to talk about my experience last night going to Quebec City to see Oliver Stone. So let's look at some of that. I was having trouble before the stream started uploading all my video from it. I don't know why. I really don't know why. It was taking forever to upload. A few clips have uploaded, but I've got the rest of the clips on my hard drive, so I can figure this out. But so I wasn't doing a stream yesterday, so I kind of tried to just film some stuff and create a little content, some kind of a vlog type thing, which it's unedited. I'm just going to show you my clips now. I think I would like to try and edit this into some kind of a YouTube clip, but I think you're really going to enjoy some of these clips of Oliver Stone. Like I said, he talked about JFK in this talk. That's ostensibly what it was about, but it was very wide ranging. He talked a lot. It covered a lot of both his filmmaking career and talking about U.S. foreign policy a lot. And it was very combative. He had this like French journalist, Jean-Francois something. I couldn't remember. I didn't catch his last name. To myself, I called him Jean-Francois Imperialiste. That was my personal nickname that I came, because he was like really pushing him on supporting these dictators and stuff. And you're going to really enjoy the footage because Stone gets pissed off about it. The audience starts to get pissed off. And it was pretty good stuff. I got some good footage of this. Thank you. Did you stop to get a delicious Diet Coke? Yes, I did. Yes, I did do that. Anyway, so here's my little vlog. I'll get to the Stone footage and then I'll figure out a way to watch the rest of the footage, which is on my hard drive and that hasn't uploaded to my Google Photos yet. Okay? Here we go. This is the footage. This is the footage from my trip to Quebec City yesterday to see filmmaker Oliver Stone. Here we go. Okay. I'm officially en route. I'm leaving Montreal on my way to Quebec City to see Oliver Stone talk about his latest documentary, JFK Revisited. Little Q&A session in Quebec, and hopefully after this evening I should have some more answers regarding the long-standing controversy over who killed JFK. And yes, I mean, we already know that it was a CIA-trained team of assassins in a triangulated firing position.
See, we already know.
In Dealey Plaza. The final shots coming from, of course, the fence by the grassy knoll in the train tracks area. Okay, so we already know that, maybe. We already do know who killed JFK, but why? That's the question. Why? Okay, well, we do know why also. Because JFK, while a staunch liberal anti-communist, did have a somewhat different vision for American foreign policy. Who, as far as we know, was planning on withdrawing American troops from Vietnam.
He had too much white boy swag. He was just goated with the sauce. That's all there is to it.
He wanted a détente with the Soviet Union.
Unless you're talking about me, Marina, which I understandably as well.
He wanted to normalize relationships with Cuba. And that, of course, was too much for the Nazi-sympathizing imperialists in the CIA and throughout the national security establishment in the United States, who needed Kennedy out of the way in order to enact their genocidal, anti-communist mass murder campaign in Vietnam, Indonesia, all throughout Central and South America. So we do kind of know why, as well as who did it. I suppose maybe we do already know that, but you know what? It should be a fun adventure nonetheless. Let's go. Okay, it's been about an hour. I'm still not out of Montreal. Because
kind of a dark night of the soul moment.
Construction, which just happens all year round, obviously. Maybe eventually they'll finish building the highway. I don't know. That'd be nice. Probably wishful thinking. Anyway, I've been stuck in traffic. In all honesty, I'm losing my nerve. What I would like to do right now is just kind of just quietly accept defeat, get off the highway, turn my car around, go back home, and just kind of relax. But
God damn it.
I am a journalist. I'm an intrepid truth teller. And when you're on the quest to find the truth, as I am right now, you got to commit. You can't just give up the first sign of any trouble. And I'm committed. I am committed to driving this 3 hours to Quebec City to see Oliver Stone here, and then immediately driving the 3 hours back. I'm committed. For good or ill, I'm committed. And at least maybe I'll find out who killed... No, okay, sorry, we already know that still. I'm sure this will be worth it, though. I'm sure it will. Oh, by the way, I did have some jerky and some squeaky cheese. And I am working on this watermelon monster energy drink, so that was pretty good. It's not all bad. And look, I'm going at sort of somewhat normal speed now. Things are picking up. My quest for the truth continues.
And my mom tried to explain, look, one-child policy doesn't apply to the Tibetan region.
This
the
is
hospital
Carl
too. She didn't understand that. She's like, what do you mean? And my mom tried to explain, look, one-child policy.
That's just remembering my parking spot. Okay, in Quebec City. Okay, I just got out of the car, and I'm here in historic, beautiful Quebec City, Quebec, to see Oliver Stone talk about the JFK assassination. Am I one step closer to the truth? I don't know. How can we ever know? How can we ever answer this question? It's impossible. We're going to see what happens, though. I just took a little nice picture of myself. Quebec City, lovely city. I highly recommend if you're able to. I recommend visiting sometime. Like Europe is really far away, and Quebec City, depending on where you are, you can visit Quebec City pretty easily, and it really is a kind of very different vibe from anywhere in North America. Interesting place. Recommend visiting there. Hey Squatch, what's up? I'm just recounting my trip to Quebec City to see Oliver Stone. You haven't gotten to the meaty parts yet. This is more of the vlog section. There's me again. There's the little, that's like the fort, because there's a whole area that's kind of a part of this fort, battlements. You go in there and there's all kinds of restaurants and stuff. I got one of these. There's my lanyard. I got a lanyard. Media pass, and it's very cool for me that I can just like reach out to film festivals and just be like, "Can I have a free pass to this thing?" And people will just give it to me. That's pretty cool. I had one of these like poke bowls. That was nice. I had never had one of those before. The poke. I had never had it. You got some tuna and some salmon tartare in there. It was very nice. Very tasty. How did the Pokemon taste? Little gamey, but I enjoyed it. There's the theater, Théâtre Diamant. Pretty cool location. Here's walking into the theater. This is how the setup was. I was a little panicky at this point because like I'm in public around like strangers that I don't know. And I started to get a little panicky because I'm so not used to like going out in public anymore. But I managed to continue. I managed to collect myself. It was a bit of stranger danger, yeah. Looks like a delightful little trip. Well, this is the thing. It was a lot of driving just to go to this event, but it was like a fun little adventure. That's what I was trying to tell myself when I was like in the process of talking, like I was almost talking myself out of going. And I was like, regardless, it's just going to be a fun little thing. And it was cool. It was a fun little adventure. Can't believe you went to Quebec City the same weekend I went to Montreal. Well, it was just yesterday. I was literally just drove down. I went to this event and just immediately drove back. So this is where I was. I was in front row. I was front right with all the serious journalists and stuff. Right in the front row. This is what it looked like. Played a little video, and then there's the man himself. Walked out. There's a guy behind him, so it looks like he has like a third leg there. And then there's one where it looks like the guy's really tiny because of like perspective. It looks like there's like a little tiny cameraman with him, but that's just because of little camera trick. Perspective trick for you. There was not a little tiny man. He was a normal, like average sized person. There's Stone. So this is where I was. I was like 10 feet away. I was 10 feet away from watching this. Got some pics. There's some stuff about Vietnam that wasn't great. That I was kind of just like trying to capture something, but it wasn't great. This was, okay, so this is the bulk of the Kennedy talk. So this clip's 9 minutes long. I got a bunch of other clips to look at, which I think people will like a lot.
But this is did I heckle? No, because I was a serious journalist. I wanted, there's moments with the interviewer made some outrageous claims and statements that I wanted to heckle. I wanted to heckle about it because I was disgusted with some of the things that I was hearing, but I did not because I'm a serious journalist. Hey, what's up, Stu? Yeah, he was in Vietnam. That's right. Yeah. Okay, so here's the clip. This is the bulk of the Kennedy talk here in this 9-minute clip. Let's see.
You said yesterday he worked with you a lot on the recent documentary JFK Revisited that you're presenting in Quebec. That you presented it yesterday and the day before, and it's going to be viewed in Quebec.
Jim DiEugenio is right here.
Yeah.
He is one of the premier, in my opinion, the premier researcher. These are the most important people in this case because they're the ones who deal with all these facts.
So I think I covered up the microphone a little bit, but I think it gets better. I will actually try to. Oh shit. Okay. Oh man. Okay. Realize something. Earlier I was trying to change the sound and I turned myself up even more. Now it might be too low. I might have fucked up my whole audio levels. Okay, let's see how this goes.
Yesterday he said about you that, in 1990 or 91 when you start working, because I think you admire Jim Garrison, the procureur who is who has done a trial against a suspect of in the assassination. He failed to get him convicted, but then he became a judge and he had a career as a jurist, and so this man, you felt something about this man. You decided to tell his story. In fact, one of the critics that were written about you in the French newspapers of Quebec today said that it was JFK was the most revisionist film in the history of cinema, which is really something weird.
It was a revisionist film.
Sorry? The most revisionist.
Nothing wrong with revisionist, by the way.
Because
the original history is wrong.
Yeah, but she was saying it in the wrong term. But anyway, but this film, Mr. DiEugenio said yesterday that you were at the peak of your career. You had many things you could do, but you were very courageous to choose that subject because it would be difficult.
Oh, just wait, John.
To do it because
we've not even scratched the surface of how grumpy Stone gets during this Q&A, because he's just spent the first bit like talking about his career and kind of buttering up. Later, when he starts lecturing him about dictators and stuff, wait till you see how pissed off Stone gets. It's really good.
The discussion that you would provoke. And you said yourself that after the film was issued, you spent so many months going around and explaining and doing somewhat damage.
Defending myself.
Yeah.
Defending myself.
Defending yourself.
There's nothing worse than to be called.
So why did you get involved?
Well, I think I was a little bit naive at that time. I didn't realize how dangerous this case was still in the American psyche, because it had died down. During the 80s, I hadn't felt much debate about it. I started to do the research in the late 80s and realized along the way that this had been a massive, massive murder. This had been something that the state got away with. And
remember, folks, this video is exclusive. You're welcome. You're no problem, HTA. This is exclusive footage. I personally took this footage yesterday, exclusive to this channel. I took a trip yesterday to create content for this channel. Remember this. This is exclusive Q&A footage, just so we're aware of this.
Story. The details of Jim Garrison's book and how he uncovers the initial phase of the investigation is fascinating.
Big scoops.
Characters in New Orleans, as in the movie, all existed. And as the film grows in its resonance, it gets bigger and bigger, and then at the middle point, if those of you who remember, when Donald Sutherland comes into the film, he tells Jim Garrison, Kevin Costner, that this case is far bigger than he ever knows because it involves the foreign policy of the United States. Why was Kennedy killed, he says? Who benefited? He gives us the reasons why Kennedy was killed, because he was working for détente with the Soviet Union. This is essentially the main reason. So this is a big reason, and it's a big concept for an American audience to get around. They're not used to that kind of thing in the film. So in the second half of the film, we attacked that notion, and we stayed on that theme, because so did Garrison. Garrison's trial was a failure. It's true, his evidence was thin, but of course, he was hounded by the CIA the whole time. His witnesses were not allowed to testify, or disappeared, or sometimes were murdered. Garrison had a huge file at the CIA. They knew everything he was doing. They bugged his office.
Who benefits
they screwed
indeed?
with him in every possible way. He persevered, and he lost. And there's something noble about that, and we didn't run away from it.
He's the president. They can't do that. I'm pretty sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen in a democracy, sir. America's a beautiful democracy. How dare you suggest that anything like that could ever happen?
Critics say, oh, Stone is making a big hero out of a guy who did nothing. That's not true. You have to understand the Garrison trial was very important because it revealed the Zapruder film, and it also revealed the autopsy, the fraudulence at the autopsy began that process. So we've continued that process through time. Jim DiEugene was one of those assassination people who knows the details, and that is so important. You have to really challenge the government here. If you don't do it, they don't have any knowledge of this. Nobody knows anything. You have people who say, oh, the Kennedy assassination, I feel this, I feel that. Who knows about this man? These people know, and they follow the details. The autopsy, where's the brain? Was the brain changed? All these questions come up. So the autopsy is the biggest reveal of all. And of course, all the original evidence from that day, all the original evidence, no, I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating, all the original evidence is tainted. Not one thing stands to the light. The bullets, the rifle, the fingerprints, the ballistics, the wounds, nothing. And it's so...
I want to hear Frenchie claim the brain wasn't switched. He doesn't push back about any of this stuff, Matt. Where is the brain? A good question. Where is the brain? It's like what Lenin said. You look for the person who will benefit. Yeah. Put JFK's brain into a Gundam. He doesn't push back about any of the JFK stuff. It's about why do you support Putler, sir? It's the French version of that. Eh, Monsieur Stone, là? Pourquoi tu aimes Putler? C'est dégueulasse, sacrément. T'aimes le Putler. Pourquoi? That's what he was saying.
So sad that in our country we accept this shallow conclusion that was come up with on the day of. They came up with this 3 bullets, 1 assassin, a communist assassin, just like that, and they put it out there, and it stuck. And the press bought it, and because they're perhaps so embarrassed that they bought it, they've stuck with it for 60 years. We have had 5 investigations on that case, including our film provoked the JFK Records Act, which will...
Oliver, that's what I'm saying. I wanted to ask you that question. You said you had to defend yourself after JFK, but JFK created a lot of results.
He's talked about... Stone has been someone who has been like publicly talking about the more Russian sympathetic version of events of the Ukraine war, which obviously right now is not very popular to do. He also interviewed Putin, which gets talked about a lot in this interview. But many people are not happy about it. The fact that he would sit down and do this. Why is the interview getting into debate mode? Sean, we haven't even touched on that stuff yet. Just wait. There's some spicy footage in here. I'm serious. There's some spicy footage, which you can only find on this channel. Exclusive.
You said yourself there was a law adopted that allowed declassification of documents. There were 5 different inquiries, and this was the impact of the film and what followed.
Yes.
Why? You know, I remember I saw a discussion that you had with the New York Times journalist, Rod Susskind, about Snowden, the film Snowden. And he was telling you something which was really interesting. He was complaining about the fact that he had Pulitzer Prizes, he had published so many journalistic inquiries and things like that. But, you know, sometimes filmmakers in one film can have a lot more impact than an inquiry of the New York Times or a Pulitzer Prize. And he said something like, movies shape people's notion of reality. And I think JFK did that, because you said from then on, there was a doubt in the population about the government, about what had happened then.
And well, more doubt. But there was always some.
There was always some.
In the 1960s, there was doubt. Remember, the case was flimsy because the moment that Lee Oswald was shot by Jack Ruby, people said, oh, something's in, there's a fix in. Everybody's seen enough movies, they know that if you kill the murderer, and something's wrong, right?
Pretty basic stuff.
So many things happen, so many things.
Also Jeffrey Epstein, right? When you're a star witness in a case that has dirt on every single powerful figure in America and internationally, and they just mysteriously die while under lockup, most people are like, yeah, okay, there's something going on there. By the way, really weird, none of that information has come out. Isn't that amazing? Of all that, they raided Epstein's house, they got into his vault, all kinds of videotapes and hard drives in there. Haven't heard one fucking word about it. Isn't that strange? That's really strange to me. Not one goddamn word. Not one picture, not one video has been released from any of the stuff that they obviously seized from his apartment. Isn't that strange? Really strange stuff. But I digress. Anyway, it's not even a digression, because Epstein was, of course, part of the fucking satanic intelligence community, playing this game of you know, blackmail and compromising, keeping compromising material on people, powerful people. He was, of course, mixed up with all these very same people, the same people that took out JFK. Anyway.
I want to make the point that the movie resulted in the U.S. Congress passing an act of legislation that for the first time allowed for transparency on their records. And that was to open the records.
That's what I'm saying. A movie can have an impact more than...
Especially in the United States, because we're up to here in national security. We're up to here with classified information. There's so much classified information now. We don't know what to do with it. It's just overdone. We should build museums of classified information and open them in 2050 or you know, whenever we're dead, we can go see them, because this is a joke. It's a real joke. But thank God, no transparency. We had the right to it. They gave it to us. But unfortunately, they take it back too, which is to say, Jim has pointed out that the assassination...
The mob had a big hand in the JFK assassination that's totally ignored by libs. Fucking Jack Ruby was a mob guy. The guy who shot Lee Harvey Oswald. A mob guy and, wouldn't you know it, an FBI informant. What a crazy coincidence. What a crazy coincidence that the accused assassin of the president was taken out before he could talk, even while saying, I didn't shoot anyone, I'm just a patsy, and then gets shot by a mobbed up federal informant, Jack Ruby. Crazy. Crazy stuff. And they made him go crazy with acid after. That's right. They MK Ultra'd this man. The CIA used the mob all the time. It's so weird. It almost does feel like there was some kind of connection with the intelligence community and organized crime. Can you imagine how messed up that would be? Wow. Crazy. Crazy stuff.
Assassination Records Review Board got
60,000 documents and 2 million pages.
60,000 documents and 2 million pages.
Yeah.
But there are still, after all this brouhaha, 14,000 pages left.
Okay. But
that's important, because These are a lot of files that are crucial. These are CIA files.
Sure. Let's.
He keeps getting interrupted. He gets so grumpy. Like I said, I do kind of think, maybe I'll be proved wrong about this. I do kind of think all these like redacted files are kind of a wild goose chase. I do kind of think that. Like I said, the most telling moment of the JFK Revisited is when Alan Dulles says that. And he's just like, no, I don't think that the redacted files are going to take any or add anything to it. I think all the information is already out there for anyone to make up their mind about it. And I think he was correct. And I think just slow rolling these unredacted documents are a way to just kind of give people this rabbit hole to go down and give these people these little crumbs that they can follow to ignore just the basic truth of the case, which anyone with eyes can look at and figure out what was going on. Okay, so here's the next. Okay, which one is this? Here's I'm going to run into issue.
The documentary is about Castro.
Okay. This is some very spicy footage, folks. Is this a MAGA stream? Yeah, that's right. No, it isn't. This is some very, very spicy footage. So the part so this is after he spent the first part of the interview kind of talking about his career and complimenting him and stuff. And then he pivots to this. He pivots to this moment and he says this was cut off in the video, but he said, "What happened to you? What happened to you, Oliver?" That's how he's kind of started framing this question. And that's when I got my camera out because I was like, oh shit, this is going to be some good stuff. So here's where he pivoted to. After talking about Stone's career and Platoon and Natural Born Killers and JFK and this kind of stuff, he pivoted to this. Do the accent again. "What happened to you, Oliver?" That's what he said, and that's why I immediately got my camera out as soon as he said this. But there's some shit in this clip that's going to enrage you. It's going to enrage each and every one of you.
You did documentaries about Castro,
about Nazarbayev, about Ortega, Chavez, Putin, the latest one. We'll talk about him later. What's going on with you? Why do you admire these people who are the opposite as what you want?
Well, what you dream of? They're not. They're not.
They are.
Well, let's start with Mr. Castro. The reason is he took on the American empire, the smallest, with a small army. He took over Cuba after 60 years of oppression,
correct to do so.
Corruption, and
he did
death dealing.
He did worse in Cuba during his power.
What?
He did worse in Cuba during his power.
No, that's an opinion. If you go to Cuba,
well, it's facts.
I was trying not to yell at this point. I was doing like the face that I just did. I was doing that live, like while filming this. I was going. As soon as I heard that. Let's go back a few seconds.
Years of oppression and corruption, and
he did
death dealing.
He did worse in Cuba during his power.
What?
He did worse in Cuba during his power.
No, that's an opinion. If you go to Cuba,
well, it's facts.
If you think Castro did worse than pre-revolution, you're wrong, because so many Cubans died in the old days. Batista was a murderer and torturer and all that other stuff. Cuba was much better. The revolution changed the island. People, you can argue, but because the Cuban exiles that left were the most antagonistic to the island. But the nature of the island changed into socialism, and people hate socialism, a lot of it. But Castro actually forged a revolution. And not only that, he survived American attempts to kill him more than 40, 50 times. And on top of it, coup d'etats, the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, he survived. And he forged his will in this, and the Cuban people are proud of him. He was a hero to them.
No, I'm talking about your attraction towards these people who found their power on lies.
You want to talk about Castro's repression, but that's not his story. His story is that he worked for the people. If you talk to him, his conscience was clear when he died that he had done good for his island. You don't understand that because you're a bourgeois capitalist. I'm not criticizing you for that.
That's what he was just explaining while you were waiting to talk. That's right. And this for this guy to say like, oh yeah, Castro did worse than Batista. When we talked about this all Friday or all Monday. It was Che Guevara Day. And talked about the massive improvements to for people's quality of life, average working class and poor people, peasants, illiterate peasants that could see a doctor or a dentist for the first time in their fucking lives. Were able to get an education.
You can count on me.
A world-class education.
Rob to talk you through all this.
Play it again? Okay.
And his conscience was clear when he died that he had done good for his island. You don't understand that because you're a bourgeois capitalist.
Thank you very much, Comrade Social Distancing, for the 2 gifted subs. But thank you so much. Much appreciated.
I'm not criticizing you for that. You know, I am too, but I can understand what the dream was, and I understand some of the dissatisfaction.
Let me put it in another way. You would never have been able to make the films that you did, or to have the freedom of creation that you had.
Yeah, that's true.
Under the regimes.
That's
of
true.
Castro,
So what? But I'm not a Cuban. I did what I did. You know, I went down there. You're a Canadian, for Christ's sake. You should know that Cuba is open to Canada, and they had trade. And because Canada was more liberal,
and their freedom and the way their governments have come.
Freedom to what? Their freedom to get an education and see a dentist and a doctor improved dramatically. This guy's such a loser. I was getting so mad about this. How does he know Castro wouldn't have made? Castro would have let him make a lot of great anti-American movies. I have no doubt. If freedom to what? They lost all their freedom. Who did, though? This is the question. Yeah, the wealthy, the rich slave-owning plantation owners and Batista's thugs in the police departments of the generals. Yeah, they did lose their freedom. Yep, they did. But the illiterate peasants who were able to get a world-class education and see a doctor or a dentist for the first time in their lives actually gained and were significantly more free afterwards. This motherfucker doesn't understand that, though, because he is indeed a bourgeois capitalist.
Told them throughout all these years.
I imagine many people in this crowd have been to Cuba. I have a feeling.
Well, let's say, why do you admire Nazarbayev or...
Nazarbayev is much later, and it's another story.
Oh. And then he pivots. Really glad. I love that clip, though. You can't make a documentary about the assassination of a U.S. president in a socialist state. Is that the argument? No, he's saying you couldn't, if you were a Cuban, you couldn't go make an anti-Cuban movie. That's his point. That's the gotcha. And he banned music. That's right. He banned music. Everyone knows this. Okay, that's the end of that clip. Now this is going to get a little tricky. Now it's going to get a little bit tricky. Let's see if I can just refresh this. See if anything else is uploaded. Okay, okay, good. We got one more clip uploaded. Let's check this one out.
Corruption, darkness, repression. Whoa. If it's not true.
Oh, here's where he's talking about Putin. So yeah, he pivots to talking about Putin. This is like the thing, because there was like articles in the French press leading up to this Q&A going like, oh, a red carpet for a Putin apologist and stuff. So there's a big segment asking about Putin, Putler, in the war in Ukraine and that kind of stuff. Anyway, he pivots to this a bunch of times about you couldn't make a film. You couldn't make a film like you have in any of these countries. That's the kind of like, that's the thought terminating argument that he has about this, about when, no matter what you can say about Venezuela or Cuba or any of these places, that's his like, no matter what you say,
You couldn't make a anti-Cuban film in this country. And that's just like his argument that he thinks is like his kind of trump card to shut down any nuanced discussion about that. And like that's what we've talked about before, and this touches on as well, where you see what is Oliver Stone's freedom of speech in the West. How has that actually changed U.S. government policy? Oliver Stone is free to make all kinds of claims about what the CIA does, to talk about Vietnam, to talk about capitalism and Wall Street, to talk about media sensationalizing violence and all these other subjects. And lo and behold, he spent his entire career doing this, and America has just steadily marched in that one direction. It has not had one iota of actual impact on what America does politically in America, in the United States, or internationally. So as much as we love to talk about free speech as this like be all and end all argument about how our society is so superior, our freedom of speech doesn't really mean a whole lot when it doesn't actually make any impact or whatsoever in the actual people that have power and how they wield this power, right? And if Oliver Stone's free speech was ever actually creating a genuine threat to power, he would not be able to make these movies. You know, we're only able to use our free speech to make films or to mobilize because the people that are making these rules knows that we're not going to actually have impact on the power centers in this country. That's why I think it's kind of an illusion. We can talk about freedom of speech all day, but I do think it's an illusion. And our amazing Western democracy with our precious voting as well, right? We can talk about how much superior that system is to countries that are run by a single party, such as Cuba or China. Ultimately, though, our democracy is an illusion. Our freedom of speech is an illusion because we're not actually able to use our freedom of speech or our freedom to vote to meaningfully change the political direction of the country. Whereas we were talking about earlier in the stream, even some countries that have one party are able to, under the one-party system, meaningfully impact policy. Anyway, here's the stuff about Putin. That's my basic point, though, is all this stuff about voting and free speech. It's an illusion because we can't actually use any of these precious freedoms to meaningfully confront the people that have power in our societies. And if we did, we wouldn't have these rights.
It's not true. I don't know where you live on Earth.
You got to slow down here. He built his life on darkness, corruption, murder. I guess you're talking about all the charges against him, none of which have been proved. None of which have been proved. Not one murder. So you got to slow down here because this is a very difficult subject matter. And I don't want to get too involved in all the details, but obviously I could have asked him about it because I did a lot of research before I talked to him.
Yeah, you can in fact make an anti-American documentary in the USA and it will change absolutely nothing because the people in power and the rich people controlling the media are entirely insulated from the consequences of their own actions. I think that's a good way of putting it, comrade social distancing. It's a total illusion. And you know, people who fetishize our Western democracy or Western culture, like this guy here, Jean-François Imperialiste, love to lecture other people in other countries about these amazing rights that we have to vote and to have freedom of speech. But yeah, in terms of the actual challenging power, these people are indeed entirely insulated from the consequences of their own actions. And if there were going to be consequences for people in power as a result of these rights, we wouldn't have the rights. That's all.
He is a man in a very difficult situation. Let me talk to you about the United States for a second because it relates to our country. The United States is a hegemon. A hegemon. It is going after control of the world.
I thought it was hegemon, but he says hegemon. I don't know who's pronouncing that wrong. Is it me? I don't know.
World domination is the goal. And unless you're kidding yourself if you feel differently. So in that regard, it has to take every nation in the world and basically make you subservient to it. I think in Canada, you know what I'm talking about, Mexico, you have to consider yourselves
The United States is a Pokemon.
Satellites of the United States subservient. You're not sovereign. Sovereignty is lost. When you talk to Europeans, I remember when they had sovereignty. It was after World War II. They had different systems, but they slowly resigned themselves to NATO. They become NATO subjects.
Can we go back to Putin?
This guy just sees so French, he just has to go back to Putin.
It still happens that
he's like, I'm doing
there are various countries in the world that have resisted the United States. And these countries include Russia, primarily because of its nuclear capacity, and China, in its own way, a wholly different culture and thought process, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Syria, Libya at one point. Those kind of countries have resisted the hegemon. And that is a serious issue. Do you want to be part of a system? And you can say yes. Do you want to be part of a system where the United States is in control of the entire world and gives you that order and peace that you want?
So that.
And this is true. Libs can't get over not talking about Putin. Too much Rachel Maddow. It's true, Squatch. Because you know what it is. You know what it is. Like I said, Stone speaks about Putin. He speaks about the Russian perspective of the Ukraine conflict, and he gets criticized for that, of course, because you're not allowed to do that, to ever express these viewpoints. He gets bad press going into this event precisely because he's this Putin apologist. And then journalists like this motherfucker know that if they don't ask tough, hard-hitting questions about this, they're going to call them a Putin apologist. And it was like, oh, that's the worst thing to ever happen. No one can ever say that to me. So, of course, they have to ask them these hard-hitting questions so that they don't get criticized. They don't get painted by association, guilt by association, to be a Putler sympathizer. That's kind of what's going on, right? It's like they're so afraid to be painted with that brush. He wants to do it. Yeah, I agree with that. But I think that's the kind of basic phenomenon. Everything bad that has happened in the West has been chalked up to Putin. He's unironically living rent-free in all these nerds' heads. And I can't remember, God damn it. I can't remember if I got this clip or not, but Stone touches on this as well. It's like, if you think this guy does not have all the power that you imagine that he does. But didn't seem to make any difference.
That you think you're going to have.
That justifies these.
Wait a second. I'm asking you, do you want to be in that system? Because you will have to be.
Well, as I said, you would not have produced and been free to do what you did in your career under Putin.
You're making one point. I'm trying to make another point. Which
he can't let go of this, right? It's all he's got. Putler synthesizer. God damn it. Ugh. If you lie about Russia and Ukraine, you're rewarded. If you tell the truth about it, you're punished. Look at Mearsheimer. Exactly. Yeah.
This is important. This is the question. You do almost the apology of a lot of people who are renowned to have built a system of power which is built on limiting the freedom of people, corruption and everything. You talk about Syria.
Corruption. What about corruption in the United States too?
Well, there is.
Not
as systematic, not as bad. And we also we fight corruption and we succeed.
We fight corruption?
Yeah.
You think so?
Well, in Canada, we
throw
it.
That's such copium. That's Western copium. Oh, we have corruption, but it's not as bad, and we fight corruption. And he's just like, oh my God. This fucking guy. I was getting so mad. Watching this. It's the nice kind of corruption. We famously fight corruption, yeah. In our society. This is very important in our society. I knew you folks would enjoy this footage, though. I was getting so upset watching this. I couldn't believe it.
System of power, which is built on, limiting the freedom of people, corruption and everything. You talk about Syria.
Corruption. What about corruption in the United States too?
Well, there is.
Not as systematic,
not as bad. And we
far bigger corruption.
And also we fight corruption. and we succeed.
We fight corruption?
Yeah.
You think so?
Well, in Canada, we
try to fight corruption. We throw in white collar.
There is still corruption. There's corruption everywhere, but it's not.
How can you become a senator in the United States or even in the House of Representatives unless you get $1 million? Come on, that's not a democracy.
Look how annoyed he is. Look how annoyed he is. Amazing. That was such a great answer, though. Why didn't Stone ban him from the chat? This is why it's better to do things this way. This is what happens when you go talk to one of these boring nerds. When was the last time someone went to jail for corruption in the US or Canada? I mean, I feel like, Ben, I think maybe the closest example would be like Madoff, Bernie Madoff, who was doing like a pyramid scheme and rich people got caught up into it. And that's why he got in trouble. And pyramid schemes are not something, they're evil, terrible things that I would never, ever support. Ever. But I think, was that maybe the last example of like a wealthy, powerful person that did any time or whatever? Never debate caucus vindicated again. It's true. Pyramid's bad, triangle's good. Thank you, Sean. Insider trading was legal for members of Congress up until 2012. Now it's illegal, but never investigated. No, it's totally normal that like Nancy Pelosi, for example, is like what's her net worth? Like in the $200 million. What's her annual salary again as an elected official? $275 annually. Yeah, it's totally normal to end up being a multi-millionaire many times over, as is every fucking one else in Congress and the Senate. That in and of itself is corruption. Like, just the fact that these fucking people can own stock in the first place is just a joke. Just a massive joke. And her husband's convenient investments. This guy just has a great investment strategy. Wow. It's just through his own plucky hard work, he's able to figure these things out. He's a finance genius. His husband is just good at stonks. Yeah. It's not systematic. Okay, yeah. Ask the MSNBC interviewer, dude, what was up with Trump's hotel a block away from the White House? Obama getting rich on Netflix because he was president is corruption. What a fucking joke. I loved that answer though, and loved just seeing how mad that he got about it. That was really satisfying because I was extremely mad myself. Anyway, there's an amazing clip coming up in this clip. There's an amazing, something really cool happens that I think you'll all appreciate.
And we are bigger corruption. And also we fight corruption and we succeed.
We fight corruption?
Yeah.
You think so?
Well, in Canada,
we throw in white collar.
There is still corruption. There's corruption everywhere, but it's not
How can you become a senator in the United States or even in the House of Representatives unless you get $1 million? Come on, that's not a democracy. You have to be corrupt to get into office.
So anyway,
how many generals are in the Pentagon? Have you looked recently? They're 10,000, 15,000. They all, what do they do? What is our military budget about? It takes half the money.
But you're able to criticize the governments in the U.S. You're able to add the discussion.
Yes,
it's the only thing he has every time. That's the only answer. It's like a fucking wind-up robot. Just recite. It goes back to the same script. This is tiny liberal brain, but you're able to criticize the government. That's all he's fucking got.
Military budget about it takes half the money.
But you're able to criticize the governments in the U.S. You're able to add the discussion.
Yes,
I think just the fact that we're able to have this criticism of the government is just indicative of itself. How this is just another method for control. Because obviously the fucking dumbasses like this guy get this idea into their head that that's the ultimate arbiter of whether you live in a free society or not. And no amount of like facts or actual information or context can just stop him from parroting this basic viewpoint. Yeah, we can comment on all these things while the powerful people that control our societies just continue to do all the bad stuff without even considering for a moment that it's completely undemocratic. The interviewer is starting to corn cup. Well, because he's got no answer to any of this stuff. Why will places like China change policy faster than the U.S. does if they somehow aren't allowed to criticize the government? And Ben, as you know, as from your talk with Charlie Kirk, as you know, anyone that loves to talk about this kind of stuff doesn't, especially when it comes to China, but about any of these other countries, doesn't actually have any fucking clue what goes on in these countries. It's just amazing how he reverts to that talking point each and every time with all of these zero answer, zero rebuttal to any of these statements.
But I may not much longer. I may not much longer.
You're not able to, yeah, but you're not, for the time being, able to do that.
He's like, oh yeah, you might be censored in the future, but right now you still can.
Under the people that you admire.
Well, there is a lot of criticism into Russia, and you've heard it because the United States press always brings it out. And by the way, when Chavez was in office, I remember going down there and they were saying he controls the newspapers. That was such bullshit. The moment you get to Venezuela, you found that all the newspapers were anti-Chavez, screaming in their headlines because the oligarchs owned the press in most of Latin America. They own all the papers and they control public opinion. But that's why Chavez opened a public television station to counter that.
And yeah, so also when you're talking about the ability to criticize and stuff and this precious freedom of speech, I mean, I talked about how that's it's an illusion considering we don't actually have ability to change direction of our government democratically despite this precious freedom of speech. That also ignores the many people, like, again, ask the fucking Black Panther Party in the 60s and early 70s about who has freedom of speech to criticize and who's allowed to criticize the U.S. government and who's not, when they were systematically imprisoned and assassinated openly by the U.S. government. Right? Ask the fucking Black Panthers about this beautiful, precious freedom of speech that this guy loves to keep going back to. Yeah, or Eugene Debs, or any other political prisoner in the United States, of which there are many. This guy has no understanding of the world beyond what he learned in 5th grade. What a joke! And again, this is like a important, like, professional former journalist who's spent his whole life reporting and learning about this shit, and has a childlike understanding of any of these issues. Like, it's literally like a child. You can also criticize the government in those countries. The people arrested for criticizing the government are almost always organized and supplied by the U.S. government. That's right. And once again, folks, this is when you're a 65-year-old man or whatever, and you still have this childlike understanding of the country that you live in and the society you live in and the world around you. That is indeed what lack of class analysis does to an MF. Like, a whole generation, the Red Scare just destroyed the brains of an entire generation. And when you don't analyze things with that level, with that class analysis, or with Marx, you end up sounding like a fucking moron like this guy. Literally talking about a perfectly democratic... Okay, thank you, Relic. This is a great point. Literally talking about how perfectly democratic the U.S. is while attending an event about how JFK was killed by the CIA. It is amazingly stupid. Yes, it is. Okay, good. These are uploading just in time.
I know that you say that it's not a way to do interviews. You never learn about people when you address them all the time. But still, I was so frustrated. What is this intelligent man? Where is the producer or the director of JFK in front of Putin? Why is he behaving like that?
I happened to do some research before.
I hope you agree with what I say.
I'm sure.
You never asked him, or when you ask him a question, he answers anything and you don't challenge the answer.
You didn't challenge him.
Oh, we never see you challenging him. Never. That's why we're asking questions about these interviews, because they were crucial in a crucial period where we wanted to know more about him. But we just had propaganda. And I'm surprised that you did that. I'll let you speak.
Sorry. exceeded your expectations.
You're right.
It was a very important interview, and I went into depth on the Syria situation, and I went into depth.
John, I know. I was getting so mad. I was like that face that I did earlier. I was doing this the whole time. The come on now face. Have you ever heard the interview with Biden? Yeah, famously, it gets challenged a lot. I love how he just shuts down the only applause the interviewer evokes by a simple hand gesture. Yeah.
On the situation in Ukraine, if you remember, in depth. And whatever you think, we went back to it and back to it because I did not understand
a critical
something.
question. You let him talk. He talks.
No, I think you should see it again because I did ask.
You let him talk. Maybe you should take a look at that interviewing style, actually.
To understand the situation. You don't like it because you don't want to hear it.
No, I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Your version. You say this guy, Nemtytov, was, this guy was killed outside the Kremlin at a key time when American-Russian relations were in the suspension. Why would the Russians do that in broad daylight, kill a member of the opposition party? It makes no sense. And if you look at the history of that story, there's no reason for him to
let him talk,
because he wasn't a key figure. As to the other guy, who's Navalny was, was busted for
the heroic freedom fighter. Of course, we got to bring that
fucking
fucking
story.
asshole up.
It was a serious trial. It was initiated by the French oil company that he was working for because he stole money from them. On top of that, Navalny has called for the overthrow of the system. Now, if we did that to the United States, call for the overthrow of the system, you would be arrested. Same thing as in Russia.
Especially if you were obviously backed by a foreign power. Like it's not like Navalny is just some Russian dissident. He's literally getting like documentaries made about him, and you've got an entire Western media establishment that's obviously backing him. So it's not like he's just some guy. He's very clearly trying to destabilize and through his own admission, trying to overthrow the government at the behest of a foreign power. The same foreign power that devastated and humiliated Russia following the Cold War. And it's really surprising that they have a problem with this. It's really shocking that this obvious, same with Guaido. I can't believe people don't like Guaido. You mean this guy that's obviously being propped up by the U.S. that has no actual legitimacy or constituency in any way? Yeah, turns out people don't really care all that much about these folks. With very good cause. Juan Guaido. Yeah, and he is a racist, Navalny. God damn, I'm so frustrated watching this.
That in these countries. You don't do it in any country. In Cuba, you don't do it in Venezuela, and you don't do it in France. You don't do it here in Canada.
He was campaigning for an overthrow of the system in a normal election, but he was not allowed
in a normal
to take
election.
part.
He also campaigned overthrow of the system
you will not
between
tell
the
me that
campaigns.
democracy in Russia works.
It's a messy democracy. The Russians are very outspoken.
That's an understatement. But anyway.
Okay, call it. Listen, they just found democracy in 1995.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that I was not touched on enough. It's not they just found democracy in 1995, but it was forced upon them undemocratically for all this guy's fucking obsession with democracy, Western democracy, was forced on them at gunpoint undemocratically, which resulted in the looting of their country and widespread immiseration of people that lived there. And all the things we've talked about before, life expectancy going down, alcoholism, suicide rates, trafficking, human trafficking, addiction, despair, all these things just skyrocket in this process when democracy, so-called Western-style democracy, was literally forced on them. Yeah, it is fucking irritating.
That's what he tells you in the interview.
Oh, yeah? Okay, well.
Yeah, he says we're a young democracy. And he says to you, the problem with the Russians is that they have all these candidates, more than 30 of them, and they cannot elect, they cannot choose. And so
one opponent and you don't
I'll
say anything.
Okay, I'm just going to cut through this. I'll say this.
Yeah.
If Putin had the control of the country, the way the picture in the Western press comes out, if he was the dictator, they say, the people of Russia would not have him still as their leader. The moment he did things,
They're
and
not
the country
allowed
the country, let me finish, please.
Yeah.
The country was going in another way. It did not work for the Russian people. They have a way of getting the message across to their leaders. It's not Stalin's time at all. It's a different system. It's a different feeling. If he did not
even in Stalin's time, the CIA admitted that Stalin wasn't the big boss of the Soviet Union who could just snap his fingers and have people disappear thousands of kilometers away, and they made every decision. Even the CIA in their own internal communications literally said, that's not, we present that as being the system, but that's not actually the case. He's kind of the leader of a team that are all collectively making decisions. So even in that case, is not even accurate what Stone is saying. It's like, as I think, as well as Stone answered some of these questions, his own lack of class analysis does come through sometimes as well. But that contradicts the vibes I have. That's right.
Work as a leader, he'd be out. So if he did,
And I know that you.
Okay. How many more? I have, I think, one more clip, and it's really an amazing clip. Okay, I'm just gonna take a brief pause because I got two more clips to play. Still good clips. What is this footage? Is good, isn't it? Like, I was not exaggerating. There's some really good stuff in this footage. I got two more clips, but they're just still uploading. It's like taking forever to fucking upload these clips. I might be able to put them in either Chrome or VLC because I have them on my hard drive. Thank you, Rob, for sharing this with us. No, of course. Yeah. Happy to do it. This is the thing, as I said at the beginning of this clip when I was driving down, I was talking myself out of it. Before I left and when I was stuck in traffic, I was like, I don't have to do this. But I was like, you know what? It's for the community. That's more important. Who cares about driving 3 hours and then driving 3 hours back in the middle of the night and then not being able to sleep at night because you're in like kind of wired driving caffeinated mode and waking up on very little sleep to do the stream again and show this footage. But who cares about that stuff? It's for the community, and so I should be doing it. And I'm glad that I did. Okay, so now this is going to be the little bit trickier part. One's 212. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to try to put on these other clips. 212. No, that's not it. Bear with me here, folks. Okay. There's the clip. Now, can I put it into... Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay, good. That's going to work. Excellent. We can continue this here.
in the world, peace. P-E-A-C-E, which we don't hear anymore, the word peace.
He's talking about being just a peace activist.
I guess
we don't hear it. We don't hear it.
I guess what I'm saying, and we should conclude on that, is that, I covered the world all my life. And I think the way you look at the United States is far more critical, critical.
Why?
He's getting mad again. More stuff to get mad at here. The way you cover the United States is more critical. Yeah, no shit. What country do I live in? What's the most powerful country in the world, asshole? Yes, I'm more critical. of the country that I live in, the global hegemon that controls the whole world politically and economically and militarily and imposes its will at gunpoint over the rest of the world undemocratically. You're more critical of USA. Jesus Christ. See the head shake again. Okay, I'll go back in a minute.
We don't hear it. We don't hear it.
I guess what I'm saying, and we should conclude on that, is that
the country that does the most evil gets the most criticism.
And I
Pretty
think
fair.
the way you look at the United States is far more critical, critical.
Why not?
Critique than other countries in the world.
Oh, but do you think Russia has the same influence on the world the United States has?
It's not a question of that. It's a question
right. It is a question of
China will have very soon. China is spending more on defense.
Okay, oh my God. You people are going to get really mad at this. Look at him. He is so done. You folks are going to get, if you thought you were mad before, get ready to get even more mad. Get ready to get even more mad here, okay? Here we go, because now we're getting into some China talk here. Okay, here we go.
China is spending more on defense. It's a question of that. It's a question of, China will have very soon. China is spending more on defense than it is
they're spending what is it, 40% of what the United States is spending?
No, in terms of what we call price parity, they are spending more than the United States.
In what?
Price parity, you know that, PPP. It's price parity. $1 spent in China can give you more than in the U.S.
Well, that's what you said.
So specialists...
What the fuck is this? What is this guy talking about? They're spending more because of price parity. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Can we please get some Maduro, not a journalist, in the chat, please? I need to see a wave of Maduros right now. Because this is the whole. I wish you just busted that out. Actually, in fact, he did make fun of him a couple times. This man is not a journalist. And see, that's the amazing thing about Western propaganda, isn't it? Is that this man thinks he's some free thinker. He thinks he's this free thinker that has the ability to criticize his country and lives in this beautiful democracy and freedom of speech. That's the truly remarkable thing, isn't it? He doesn't even realize that he's a propagandist. That's the sad thing. He's not like, oh, I'm being a paid propagandist. He thinks he's a free thinker and has just no idea the actual function that he serves. It's like that's the Chomsky thing again. If you believe different, you wouldn't be sitting there, would you? Oliver got with price parity. Boom, communism failed. Vuvuzela. 800 bazillion killed. This analytic we've just made up actually says China spends more. Anyway, this goes on for another minute, so let's check this. Let's go back to that. But I was just in shock watching this. I was in shock.
Say that it's roughly the same budget in real terms.
Put it this way, China is looking at the United States, which has a huge defense mechanism, huge.
Anyway, what I'm
saying... We
have
super carriers everywhere in the world. Yeah. What China wants to build up, why? Because they're scared shitless of the United States. Yeah. And they don't want to go through the 19th century again when they were dominated by imperialism. They know the West. They know Britain and they know America and they know what they're up to. So when the Australians and the British and the Americans get together with a new Navy deal, what do you think China does? What do you think when we arm Taiwan, the same as we're arming Ukraine? What does it say to China?
So I'm just saying that you're treating America and the United States very differently than you treat other regimes. You have which are
wait. Get ready. A hero, and then a hero emerges. Are you ready for this, folks? A lone hero emerges. Get ready.
United States very differently than you treat other regimes. You have which are very
Moi, j'ai payé pour entendre M. Stone parler de ses films.
Okay.
Pas pour que vous ayez un argument personnel
Interesting. No, she said that she paid to hear you and talk about your films.
Yes,
and we spent
Yeah, she said like, hey, hello, I paid to hear Mr. Stone talk about his films and not to hear you fucking lecture him this entire time. And everyone cheered. And now the interviewer is doing the pretend funny face. Oh, it's actually funny to me. It's actually funny to me too. We're not here for your nonsense, buddy. Thank you. A brave hero. A brave hero emerged and said what everyone was thinking. He's not mad. He's actually laughing. He's getting owned by a random audience lady. I couldn't believe I caught that. I was so happy.
And the United States very differently than you treat other regimes.
You have
which are very, yeah.
Moi, j'ai payé pour entendre M. Stone parler de ses films.
Okay.
Pas pour que vous ayez un argument personnel.
Interesting. No, she said that she paid to hear you and talk about your films. And we spent 2 hours.
Yeah. And honest to God, and then everyone clapped moment. It's true. I got one more clip, one final clip. I think I'll try and grab that one and put it on Twitter actually. One final clip.
Because Kennedy was aware of the Soviet contribution to World War II. He pointed it out. They lost 27 million people fighting fascism. They hate it. And it's still in Europe. We still see fascism. It's out there. And unfortunately, some of you don't realize it because the press doesn't tell you, but there is a hell of a lot of fascism in Ukraine. But on top of that, the peace that he wanted, he said very clearly, was we don't want a peace, a Pax Americana, an American peace, governed by weapons of war, which is what the United States wants. They want to sell you weapons, you have money, we're selling you weapons, and you join our alliance, and we protect you, and blah, 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 and it makes the whole world a militant area filled with weapons.
It's an arms dealer pretending to be a country.
Who do you think makes money from all this? Who do you think makes money from war? It's Washington and the complex there, the military-industrial complex, as well as intelligence agencies and the lobbyists. It's a huge industry, and whatever he says about China, the United States continues to spend. And what happened with, unfortunately, after Iraq and after Afghanistan, we withdrew. Oh boy, there's no money to be made. Now, what happens? A few months later, we're provoking the Ukrainian government. Go fight. Go get the Russians. Go east. And that's right. Ukraine had been neutral up until 2014. We instigated the coup d'etat there. We put in this government, horrible government. The President Zelensky will not negotiate. He was elected on a platform of peace. Peace. 80% of the people in Ukraine, or 75, voted for him on the basis of peace. And he hasn't approached he didn't even visit the Minsk Accords because he was scared off by, I believe, the right sector in Ukraine. So he hasn't addressed the issue of peace in Ukraine. And the United States keeps putting weapons into Ukraine, bigger and bigger, more and more money. So that makes up Afghanistan, makes up for Iraq, keeps the whole thing going. A fortune is being made here, a fortune, and more coming. We will keep this war going as long as we can, as long as we can. It's being used to destroy the Russian economy. But peace is Pax Americana, back to Kennedy, very crucial to understand that that is the right peace to have, not a peace of respect between countries, respect the interests of other countries, the sovereignty of other countries. This is all that people who oppose us want, is sovereignty. Don't attack them, leave them be. And that is, I think, Kennedy made a beautiful speech about we're all mortal, and we all have children, and We have to protect our water, our earth. It's the most important thing.
And do you believe that that kind of peace is attainable today?
It would be unless there were several hegemons walking around. I do believe that the United States misunderstands its mission it was put on earth for. And it's turned into a money-greedy organization trying to make money off of war. That's not good. So once something happened, I don't think Russia would behave the way it did, or China would behave the way it did if it hadn't been for this dominant force in the universe that's seeking control.
Several hegemons, and one clip, Sin Chow, I wasn't able to film this part. It was one thing that he said, but I think we just made an interesting point talking about all these places, Russia and China and Venezuela, Iran, and just like how important it was for the U.S. to just be opposed, you know. And it's an interesting way of coming about that kind of viewpoint. You know, he's not a communist or anything like Oliver Stone. He isn't, but I think he does have the correct line in understanding the role that the U.S. plays around the world. And no matter what you say about Iran or Russia or any of these other countries, it's actually a good thing for countries to oppose that. It's actually a good thing that's valuable to everyone in the whole world that we should support. You know, that's a viewpoint that I happen to agree with. It's not particularly popular at the moment. You know, Canadian Trotskys will love to call you a campist. They'll call you a campist if you take a kind of a viewpoint. Which is funny, but that's the reality. I think it is important. I do agree with that. I do agree with that viewpoint. It doesn't, and when you say that, it doesn't mean that you think places like Iran or Russia or any of these countries are perfect places. We need to empathize. We need to copy. But we do need to recognize the role they're playing in resisting U.S. imperialism, resisting U.S. hegemony. And we need to support that, regardless of how unpopular it is. Anyway, that is all my footage of the Oliver Stone Q&A, folks. It would have made it. I think this was really great stuff. It would have been even better if I'd been able to ask a question and get some footage of that. Unfortunately, my phone died, and again, I kind of chickened out because I wouldn't even been able to make it into content. The one thing I regret a little bit, but I'm very happy that I went to this event. I think this footage was really great. Really happy that I was able to share it with you guys. I think it's very enjoyable to not only hear Oliver Stone, but to hear to climb inside the mind of these kind of liberals that operate in the media. Thank you, Sophisticated Pills, for the 99 friend coin. Thank you. You remain a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you, comrade. What would you have asked? I had a couple questions. Like I said, I wanted to ask a bit about how the JFK assassination has been kind of absorbed by the Trump world and the kind of like right-wing conspiracy world, the QAnon and all that. I wanted to know whether he was aware of that and like what he made of that kind of phenomenon. I had some other questions too. I wanted to ask, because another thing I thought to ask as well, and I feel a little regret that I didn't do this. Hopefully I'll get another opportunity sometime. But just to talk also about how a lot of his films, particularly the films that he made like in his prime, Platoon, Wall Street, JFK, and Natural Born Killers. Like if you just take those four movies, and they're like films about fascism, right? Even if they're not like outwardly like that, like that's kind of the subtext that's being explored in all these movies from all these different angles. And I wanted to ask him, and this is specifically referenced in JFK, I wanted to ask him if he senses, I think as we do, that fascism is kind of making a return, is ready to make a return about in the United States, like throughout this decade. Not that it ever really left, but it's going to really the real thing domestically, not just internationally, not just this kind of fake, false, illusory free speech and democracy, but the real thing. I wanted to ask about whether he was getting that kind of sense as well. Anyway, that was great. I'm going to turn this into something. I don't know if I'll keep the vlog part. I hope you enjoyed the vlog aspect of it. I don't know if I'll include that in the YouTube video, but I am going to turn this into a video with all these different clips. I mean, were there any good questions from the other people? Usually not. They were all right. It wasn't great. And even though like this interviewer was an asshole and I didn't like these questions, I actually was happy to get that footage at the same time. And I think it's interesting to dissect like why people like that feel the need to ask these kinds of questions and hold these beliefs about these completely contradictory beliefs about our society and freedom of speech or whatever. Like we were pointing out before, is at an event talking about how the CIA assassinated the sitting president of the United States and then engaged in a global mass murder campaign immediately afterwards. And this guy's at that event talking about how wonderful our democracy is and how we can make films like Platoon and JFK, and that means that we have ultimate freedom. We investigate corruption, we fix it. Again, it's the baby brain, the baby talk. The baby talk mumbo jumbo when you talk without marks and without class analysis. 80% of reporters from the upper crust, it's definitely in their interest to keep it going. Absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe we can turn this Oliver Stone face into an emote. Huh? So, folks, we're going to have to take a brief interlude now to hear from our friend Matt Damon. We're going 2.5 hours in this stream, and I've barely mentioned this. And once again, we've been taking a look at exclusive footage that I took the day off streaming yesterday to get. So did not stream yesterday and had to, pay for gas and snacks and that kind of stuff. So if you appreciate this footage, please subscribe.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Matt Damon couldn't possibly lead me astray, poggers.
Matt Damon would never lie to you. Thank you, James, for the 19 months of Tier 1. So if you appreciate the footage, you appreciate the stream and the community, you can subscribe to the channel. You can give subs to the channel, which of course allows you to move up and down in this patented two-dimensional friendship
You've just
triangle
become an elite
system.
member of the Friendship Triangle.
Thank you so much, King Uendo, for the 5 gifted
You
subs.
can count on
really
me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And thanks Left Hand Stu as well. Stu, real life, like,
you can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Subs. And thank you, John, as well. Should I do the whole thing again? Should I do the whole pitch again?
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Should I do it again?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Okay, hold on.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Okay, here we go.
History is filled with almost. With those who almost adventured, who almost achieved, but ultimately
count
for
on
them,
me. You're gonna have good old Rob
it proved to be too
talk you
much.
through all this.
Dankies.
Then there are others.
You can count on me. You're gonna have
The
good
ones who
old
embrace
Rob
the moment
to talk you through all
and
this.
commit. And in those moments of truth, these
You
men
can
and
count
women,
on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you
these
through
mere
all this.
mortals, just like you and me, as they peer over the edge,
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
they calm
Thank
their
you for
minds.
5 months of talking me through all this, worm god.
They calm their minds and steel their nerves with 4 simple words that have been whispered by the intrepid since the time of the Romans. Fortune favors the brave. Join the patented TRRS Friendship Triangle Clout Distribution System today. We're all feeling isolated. We're all feeling alienated. We're all reaching out a hand. In friendship, in community.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
The very clearly two-dimensional Friendship Triangle system is the answer, the stable investment that can deliver all these things and more. I should have an actual script on this. Amazing Bird Show. Thank you for the gifted sub. Amazing Bird Show. Thank you, GMO Radio,
You
for
can count
the
on
gifted
me.
sub
You're
as
gonna
well.
have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Lucid's Uru Waifu. Thank you for the 2 months of Tier 1. Thank you very much, Lucid's Uru Waifu. Thank you, is it Jane 808? I don't know how to pronounce that. That was for the 3 gifted subs. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Alana Nana, thank you for the 4 gifted subs. I appreciate that very much, Alana. Thank you, Ms. Squatch, for the 5 months of Tier 1, and it's been my pleasure to talk you through all this. Thank you also to Don Dark Zoni for the 5 gifted subs as well. And thank you also to Tyler Madsen for the gifted sub. Thank you very much, folks and friends. We did it. We reached the goal. I mean, I guess I can keep the epic music going. We did reach the goal. We still got another couple minutes left in this hype train. We started off talking about train chat. Speaking of trains, we still do have a hype train, so I'll let that roll for another couple moments, just to.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Cape Communist. Thank you for the gifted sub, Cape Communist. Jesus Christ. This is fucking ludicrous. This picture, I love this picture. It's so funny. God damn. Okay, it's enough. It's enough now. This fucking tweet, I posted this at 11:20 a.m. It's got 191,000 likes. Ridiculous. I have never seen that before. I'm not trying to brag or anything. I'm just genuinely kind of taken aback. Really incredible how meta that Matt Damon image is going to be in 5 months. It's great meme potential.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh my goodness gracious. Benin PS. Is that how you say that? Beninps?
Look at that. Rockets right up. Rockets right up immediately to that elite level of the Friendship Triangle. Thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs.
We simply
very much appreciate
use the
it. Thank
computer
you.
to mark up the size of the account.
Good God, Rob, that tweet.
Yeah, seriously, Doc. Thank you for the 200 friend coin. It's actually absurd. I think this is going to be probably my biggest tweet of all time. People want trains, folks. The people have spoken. They want hype trains, and they get hype over actual trains. But in our beautiful democracy, of course, our leaders do not listen to our cries. Oh, okay. Folks, thank you so much for contributing to the stream. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm really glad that you enjoyed watching all that footage from the Oliver Stone thing. I'm really, really, again, I was very close to talking myself out of that. So I'm really happy that I did it, and I'm glad that you folks enjoyed the footage. I had a feeling as I was filming it, I was like, oh man, the chat's gonna love this. Chat's gonna love this stuff. We're gonna love making fun of this guy tomorrow. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. I'll take a brief break, just for like 5 minutes. Thanks again for everyone for contributing to this hype train and for supporting the channel. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. We love our legitimate journalist son, Rob, don't we, folks? Thank you, Outrun, and thank you, G Cluppy, as well. Great and based footage. We love it. So everyone has been asking me. I did say on Monday that comedian and musician Nick Lutzko was coming on the show today. He did just get in touch this morning and had a family thing come up, so wasn't able to do it today. So Nick Lutzko will be coming on the show on Monday. So it's unfortunate we had to reschedule today, but Monday, Nick Lutzko will be joining us right here on TRRS Monday. I've got some more stuff in the works as well. I got more JFK content coming up as well through someone that I connected with through doing the stream. He's got a small baby, that happens, and it gives us more time to stream his entire catalog on an empty segment on Friday. Yeah. Yeah, that'll be good. That's going to be really good stuff. I'm really looking forward to that. Okay. Let's take a little break. God, I'm still just so disconcerted how smooth I am. I'm never going to get over just the fact that I can do this now. And my hands aren't blurry. And for some reason, this motion is kind of satisfying to me. I don't know why. Yeah, I'm just going to take a short break, though. I will be back in like 5 minutes.
It is with great pride that I participate in this ceremony of the American University. I have chosen this time and place to discuss the most important topic on earth, peace. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
Hold on a sec. Okay, no, that's not what I want.
President Anderson, members of the faculty,
June 10th,
Board of
63.
Trustees, distinguished guests, my old colleague, Senator Bob Byrd, who has earned his degree through many years of attending Knight Law School, while I am earning mine in the next 30 minutes, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, It is with great pride that I participate in this ceremony of the American University, sponsored by the Methodist Church.
We'll be back in a few moments.
Founded by Bishop John Fletcher Hurst, and first opened by President Woodrow Wilson in 1914. This is a young and growing university, but it has already fulfilled Bishop Hurst's enlightened hope for the study of history and public affairs in a city devoted to the making of history and to the conduct of the public's business. By sponsoring this institution of higher learning for all who wish to learn, whatever their color or their creed, the Methodists of this area and the nation deserve the nation's thanks. And I commend all those who are today graduating. Professor Woodrow Wilson once said that every man sent out from a university should be a man of his nation, talents. He admired the splendid beauty of a university and enforced on the world by American weapons of war. What do I mean, and what kind of a peace truth too rarely perceived? And that is the most important topic to know, where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see. I have therefore chosen this time and place to discuss a topic on which ignorance too often abounds, and the truth too rarely perceived. And that is the most important topic on earth, peace. What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war. Not the peace of the grave, or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, is the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, peace in all time. I speak of peace because of the new face of war. Total war makes no sense in an age where great powers can maintain large and relatively invulnerable nuclear forces and refuse to surrender without resort to those forces. It makes no sense in an age where a single nuclear weapon contains almost 10 times explosive force delivered by all the Allied air forces in the Second World War. It makes no sense in an age when the deadly poisons produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and sea to the far corners of the globe and to generations yet unborn. Today, the expenditure of billions of dollars every year on weapons acquired for the purpose of making sure we never need them is essential to the keeping of peace. But surely the acquisition of such idle stockpiles, which can only destroy and never create, is not the only, much less the most efficient means of assuring peace. I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of rational men. I realize the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuers fall on deaf ears, but we have no more urgent task. Some say that it is useless to speak of peace, or world law, or world disarmament, and that it will be useless until the leaders of the Soviet Union adopt a more enlightened attitude. I hope they do. I believe we can help them do it. But I also believe that we must re-examine our own attitudes as individuals and as a nation. For our attitude is as essential as theirs. And every graduate of this school, every thoughtful citizen who despairs of war and wishes to bring peace should begin by looking inward, by examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War, and towards freedom and peace here at home. First, examine our attitude towards peace itself. Too many of us think it is impossible. Too many think it is unreal. But that is a dangerous, defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces we cannot control. We need not accept that view. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man, and man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again. I am not referring to the absolute, infinite concept of universal peace and goodwill, of which some fantasies and fanatics dream. I do not deny the value of hopes and dreams, but we merely invite discouragement and incredulity by making that our only and immediate goal. Let us focus instead on a more practical, more attainable peace, based not on a sudden revolution in human nature, but on a gradual evolution in human institutions, on a series of concrete actions and effective agreements which are in the interests of all concerned. There is no single simple key to this peace, no grand or magic formula to be adopted by one or two powers. Genuine peace must be the product of many nations, the sum of many acts. It must be dynamic, not static, changing to meet the challenge of each new generation. For peace is a process, a way of solving problems. With such a peace, there will still be quarrels and conflicting interests, as there are within families and nations. World peace, like community peace, does not require that each man love his neighbor. It requires only that they live together in mutual tolerance, submitting their disputes to a just and peaceful settlement. And history teaches us that enmities between nations, as between individuals, do not last forever. However fixed our likes and dislikes may seem, the tide of time and events will often bring surprising changes in the relations between nations and neighbors. So let us persevere. Peace need not be impractical, and war need not be inevitable. By defining our goal more clearly, by making it seem more manageable and less remote, we can help all people to see it, to draw hope from it, and to move irresistibly towards it. And second, let us re-examine our attitude towards the Soviet Union. It is discouraging to think that their leaders may actually believe what their propagandists write. It is discouraging to read a recent authoritative Soviet text on military strategy and find on page after page wholly baseless and incredible claims, such as the allegation that American imperialist circles are preparing to unleash different types of war, that there is a very real threat of a preventative war.
I think actually JFK, maybe there was something to that in retrospect. Maybe those Soviet propagandists did actually have something. Maybe they were onto something. Edard, here's my question for you. Edard Stark, here's my question for you. Why aren't you watching the January 6th hearings? What are you doing in here? What are you doing in here? The future of America is at stake, sir. Turn on MSNBC and watch the hearings. What are you doing in here? Messing around in here. I don't think you're taking this shit seriously, frankly. I don't think you're taking this January 6th stuff seriously. You're in here messing around on Twitch rather than watching the hearings. If it was that serious, I think you should be watching this stuff. Oh, he's doing both. Okay, I see. Okay.
Democracy is at stake, sir. Stop messing around in Twitch chat and pay attention to this stuff. I actually heard a rumor. Like, you know, I'm actually a journalist. I've got like sources in Washington and stuff. I had a rumor Trump's going to be led away in handcuffs tonight. Tonight's the night, folks. They're bringing back Mueller. They're bringing back Comey and Merrick Garland. All three of them. They're going to get together. They're going to cuff him, put him in leg irons, and just lead him out of Trump Tower. It's happening. It's going down tonight. I got the skinny on this. I got sources. They've told me it's for sure happening this time. It's for sure happening. And you're in here dicking around on Twitch chat. You're going to miss it. My sources in the Justice Department have told me we're getting the fucking band back together. Hell yeah. They're going to play the NWO Wolfpack song. When they get him. When they arrest the Orange Man. You know, not enough people on Twitch, frankly, and I think we all need to do better on this, not enough people on Twitch recognize that the Orange Man is bad, I think. It's really unfortunate. We don't hear it enough. We don't hear it talked about enough. I'm sorry, Mr. Cypher, sir. Frankly, I don't think any of us are taking the Orange Man's badness. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. Thank you for gifting a sub to Mr. Cypher. Dark Zony. Edward, where are you at? Are you still here? Or are we gone now? Are you taking this? Are you back to watching the hearings? It's funny because this lib Trump delusion is the perfect parallel to the MAGA recount delusion. How they went on for months and months about how it would be reinstated. And it is this. No, Russiagate. It started as Russiagate, but now it's like whatever level of Trump delusion is at now. But that was always the liberal version of like QAnon. The secret story that we don't know about how our leaders are actually like competent and like doing stuff to curb the power of their political opponents. This fiction that they tell themselves. I hope they sentence him to 200 cold McDonald's hamburgers. Oh my. Oh my goodness. You know what he's not going to have, and when Donald Trump's in prison, you know he's not going to have. He's not going to be able to wake up in the morning and have a nice hot steaming cup of kafifi. Huh? Once he's in prison, he's not going to have any of that. I'm sympathetic to guys like Owen Higgins who take 1-6 hearing seriously, but until the Democrats take it seriously, I cannot and will not. Well, that's the thing, HTA, like I've talked about before. I take the actual incident of January 6th seriously. Yeah, I don't need to be convinced by these hearings. I get the basic premise. We all saw Trump lie about the election being stolen and get all the hogs riled up to go run around the Capitol. And there was all kinds of militia types going in there that really thought that they were going to string up Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi and this kind of stuff. I have no doubt of this. I'm already convinced. I don't even need to watch one moment of these hearings. I already believe that did happen. How much of these people were federal informants and what level of involvement did the intelligence community have with that? That's another question that I'm intrigued about, which of course these hearings will never determine. That little pesky little question about how many of these folks were feds, of course, I'm sure that's not going to be determined at these hearings. That's the thing. I agree with the basic premise, though. I agree with the basic premise. What I don't agree with is that these hearings are going to result in anything actually happening. That's why I don't watch them. That's why I'm not covering them on this program. Number one, 90,000 other Twitch channels are also covering the hearings, and I don't often like to cover things that are just like every single channel on Twitch is talking about. Number one. Number two, I don't think anything is going to actually happen in these hearings. I'm not going to be convinced about anything that I don't already think
already. And if there's any consequences, serious consequences for Trump or any other major political figure that was involved in this, then I'll say, wow, I was wrong. But we all know that is not going to happen. We all know Trump's not going to be arrested. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and all these folks, they're not going to be removed from power. They're not going to go after Clarence. They could go after Clarence Thomas. Like I would ask the January 6th heads in the chat, people that want to come in here and like yell about who's covering what. Why don't you go yell at the Democrats to go recall Clarence Thomas, whose wife is this lunatic conservative who was trying to overthrow the election results? Go yell at Democrats and tell them to recall Clarence Thomas and put another Supreme Court justice on the Supreme Court in his place. If they're not doing that, then don't come here and fucking yell at me for not, or the community for not talking about this. Go yell at your liberal heroes. Tell them to actually do something about some of this shit rather than just put movies together about it and talk endlessly about it. How about that? Yell at your liberal heroes for not fucking doing anything. Clarence Thomas currently being piloted by J Weekend at Bernie style. Seriously, if you're mad, if rather than get upset about the January 6th hearings and who's talking about it on Twitch and who's not, go yell at your liberal heroes for just completely blowing whatever opportunity they have to turn this into meaningful action, which they will not do. I've just been really busy and forgot to impeach Clarence Thomas. That's on me. Okay, well, I mean, owning up to it is the first step in improving, right? Engaging in self-criticism is important. I've yet to hear back from Edard, unfortunately, but that would be my answer to people that are curious about why we're not talking about this on the channel. Why we're not breathlessly covering these hearings. Edard, if you're still here, and I'm not sure if you are, Edard Stark was here like yelling at us about this January 6th shit. If you're still here, if Donald Trump or any like actual powerful figure in the conservative movement faces any meaningful consequences for this stuff at all, I will pay you $5. You can DM me.
Count on me.
I will give you my
good old Rob to
give me
talk
your email
you through
address.
all this.
I will PayPal you $5.
We just need the good Republicans to come back.
But if they don't, you have to give me $5 or just subscribe to the channel. Are even lower level people facing anything? Well, there's some of the saps that ran in and stormed the Capitol are. There's people still in jail right now for being involved with that. And frankly, I think it's actually very fucked up that these like weirdos and like MAGA cultists that got talked into this by the president and other conservative influencers are there doing time for it, while all the people that were doing the talking them into it are all just skating away from it. That I think is actually quite unfair. Liz, if only we'll just stand up with Liz Cheney, line up behind Liz Cheney, and that's going to fix everything. Because then it's not partisan, right? So that's that 5D chess. The walls are closing in around the Orange Man. Yeah, it's only been 5 fucking years of this. Oh, thank you, Brooklyn, for the Prime, by the way. 11 months of Prime. We just need the good Republicans to come back. Yeah, exactly, like Liz Cheney. That's right. Centrist moderates like Liz Cheney. They probably got talked into it by undercover FBI agents online. Yeah, that and Donald Trump. Like I've said, whenever we talk about this, we can talk about the role that the intelligence community played. I think we can and should talk about that. But I think the simplest explanation for a lot of these people is a lot of these people really just love the former host of The Apprentice and wanted him to still be president. And when he was complaining about the election being stolen by evil liberals, they believed him and wanted to prove to the former host of The Apprentice.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
They wanted
Rob
to prove how loyal
talk you
they
through all
were
this.
by putting
7
their
months
fucking
and when are we
livelihoods on
going
the
to
line.
drink the Kool-Aid?
So yeah, I think many of them got talked into it probably by undercover FBI agents, but I think most of them got talked to it by the fucking president of the United States. He was like, folks, they're stealing the election. Again, every time this comes up, we talk about this. When we watched that speech on this stream, in the early days of this stream, and we were just saying like, yeah, what's the what's going to happen here? Like, he's clearly asking people to commit violence on his behalf as part of this like stolen election plot. Thank you, Darius Agro, for the 7 months of tier 1 as well. When are we going to drink the Kool-Aid? That's coming. That's phase 4. Okay. I wish we had the 1.6 footage too. Me too. Seriously. It's so annoying that I didn't download it onto my PC. I uploaded it right from Twitch to YouTube. And then it expired on Twitch and it was only living on YouTube. And then it was removed from YouTube because it was like, because all the footage from January 6th, they just assumed it was supporting it and supporting QAnon and all this stuff. And in the rush to kind of whitewash the role they had played in allowing this stuff to fester on their platforms, they just got rid of everything on there. So my like 6-hour stream from that day where we covered the whole thing from Trump's speech in the morning all the way through to all the rioting and all that stuff is lost forever, except for one clip. Maybe I could find it on archive. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I was watching Jack AM that morning. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we were saying that day. It's like something was about to happen. It was very clear. Holding powerful people accountable is a dangerous precedent if you're a powerful person who should be held accountable. Yeah. Well, that's it. It's so, and like it is dangerous. Like this is the line they do have to walk. If they did acknowledge, like as they said, oh yeah, we think a crime has been committed, but we're just not doing anything about that. If they did do something about it, which of course, as we all know, they are not going to, it would be it'd turn into a big shit show. There would be probably rioting and all kinds of crazy violence as a result of that, because you have this right-wing audience that's been primed now for years on this like paranoid conservative conspiracy theory shit that think the Democrats are like Stalinists basically. And if Trump, as much as we understand that Trump is a criminal, if he did face consequences from that, which it's not an excuse not to, by the way, but if they actually did find some courage to do that, it of course would create a massive shitstorm. But that shouldn't be a reason not to do things. I mean, crime is still illegal, I think, even if you are President Trump and even if you are a powerful person that has a big political movement behind you. It is still illegal to do crimes, or it should be. I remember sitting in the car waiting with my mom at the vet for my dog and watching you on my iPhone. So this motherfucker comes in here, yells at us for not talking about January 6th, and then we talk about it, and he doesn't, then he just goes away. Unbelievable. It's rude. I'm just trying to find the one clip. Sorry if you don't mind me. Where is it? I'm just trying to find the clip of... geez, I'm on clips I've created. That's the problem. Someone's probably posting the link in the chat that I need, but... Any moment here. Any moment I'm going to find this. Don't mind me, just... Here we go. I found it. The one clip that remains. The one clip that remains from my January 6th coverage. But you know, when you're dealing with stressful situations, like the collapse of the United States, it can be mentally taxing. It can be physically draining. That's why I like to enjoy a sip of a cool, crisp, Rain Energy, Lemon HDZ, which gives me the energy that I need and the mental clarity. Very important. The mental clarity. You need it in moments like this. You need it. It's my only footage that remains of my now historic coverage. Contact your Rain rep. You know, Sinchow, I'm starting to fear the worst because now I'm not seeing it in stores anymore. I'm wondering if it's being canceled, if it's even going to be sold here anymore, or if it's just not going to exist anymore, which I'm going to find that very upsetting. If anyone else comes in here wondering why I don't take 1/6 seriously, we can just tell them that I was watching that while it happened. What a silly day. It was a very silly day, wasn't it? Okay, so here's the thing, Red Wizard. People want to clutch pearls now, but when the shit was live, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. Like, it was objectively hilarious on many levels. I think it was, and my point I made at the time was it can both be funny and extremely alarming at the same time. I think I tried to maintain the line between both of these things. Still love the guy who was carrying the podium out. Yeah. There was some, like, it's hard not to laugh at that. It can be both. Like, it was ridiculous. Just because it was ridiculous and stupid doesn't mean that there weren't, and again, I like to differentiate between the saps that got caught up in this, that just loved the president and they ruined their whole lives over it, or were radicalized by these online FBI guys or whatever. I like to try and differentiate between those folks, the yahoos, and the serious militia types who did have, like, designs to, like, go after elected officials. And as much as I don't like people like Nancy Pelosi or Mike Pence, I don't actually have any respect for, like, the United States government. I don't think it's a beautiful, hallowed institution of democracy or any of that stuff. And regardless of that, though, like, these are bad people, legitimately bad people. Regardless of that, I don't think it would have been good for anybody to have, like, the Proud Boys stringing up Nancy Pelosi outside the Capitol building. I think that would be ultimately, overall, regardless of whether I like or respect Nancy Pelosi, ultimately I think that probably would have been a bad direction for America to be going. I think the funniest thing was that the military and police defense complex definitely had the capacity to just squash any amount of uprising, and they didn't. I mean, Dr. Maggot, that's the thing that I've been trying to kind of pointing out since that time. That remains the most interesting angle to me. We know full well that if they wanted to shut down these fucking weirdos from going into the Capitol building, they could have done so. So the question is why they were allowed to get in there. What combination of incompetence, sympathy on the part of this fascist national security state that does worship Trump and does want to kind of go in these undemocratic directions, or deep state types who were against Trump and were trying to let this thing intentionally get out of control so they could use it to neutralize the Trump movement, which of course still fucking failed miserably. Also, the Proud Boys guys was given a plan of attack basically, but the source of that plan is still anonymous. Yeah, and like Boebert and like all these like weird Republicans, like MAGA Republicans, were like giving tours to people the night before. Like I genuinely think there's some real serious shit going on with January 6th. This is the line I try to walk about this. I actually do think it was serious, as stupid and funny as it was. However, I don't think these hearings aren't convincing anyone of that. I don't think that isn't already convinced. Nor will they lead to any actual consequences. So, like, what's the point of getting fucking worked up about it? There's that one cop who, like, half-heartedly tried stopping them. Yeah. Yeah. Basically just opened the fucking gates for them. Yeah, there was the stuff about the panic button. You know what else is interesting too? Like we're talking about the cops that died too. I think at least one or two cops committed suicide after. Did they commit suicide because they were so traumatized by the violent events of 1/6, or did they commit suicide in the same way that other inconvenient people to the United States national security state have also committed suicide throughout history? Is it one of those kinds of things? There's a lot of interesting stuff going on that we could poke around about. This investigation, the hearings are not going to have answers to any of these real questions. What it is going to be is a bunch of political theater, worshiping cops, asking for more security, and just flailing at nothing while not having any consequences for anyone that was involved. Here's the weird thing. Boebert and Candace Owens and Crowder were all part of this weird talent agency. Yeah, I mean, there was Crowder and other conservative influencers were directly involved in literally organizing the event and organizing buses for people to go, which, as I'll say again, we all knew. I guess we're talking we're talking about how we're not talking about it. But I think it's better to have these conversations if you want to talk about January 6th than to just sit down and passively absorb these hearings, you know? So there you go. Fucking Edard starts the whole conversation, then leaves. Very rude. But yeah, all these conservative influencers were intimately involved in planning the event and organizing bus trips to the riot, and who as we've said, on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Gab, on Parler, on all of these social media networks, these people were under their own identities, not anonymously being we are going to storm the Capitol, and we're openly talking about this. With these conservative influencers just helped every step of the way. Yeah, then they say the buses were that's been a very funny switch about Antifa and stuff. The buses were Antifa. And then remember when January 6th happened and everyone was mad about it. Then all of a sudden all these influencers that were up until the moment it happened were encouraging the whole thing. Then they were oh, the people inside the building are actually gay, they, them, Antifas, by the way. And were literally the people that threw their whole lives away to be involved with this. They got immediately being no, those are actually non-patriotic Antifa agents. So they get totally thrown under the bus. And then, of course, when it cools down and the spin happens and it becomes okay to talk, then they hold them up again and say, oh, it was no big deal and it was cool. But when everyone was mad and upset about it, they were immediately disavowing all the people that were involved. That was very funny. Yes, U.S. patriots were all there. It was also Antifa. Yeah, that's it. They simultaneously believe these two things. And listen, as always, when we talk about this, because we have a lot of weirdos on the ostensibly on the left that try to lecture people on about why we need to not only take January 6th seriously, but support the people that did it, because they're engaged in this anti-state. They're engaged in some kind of Leninist attempted overthrow of the government. So we just have to support them. And it's no, I think we can actually hold two ideas in our mind at the same time. We can be against things when bad people do them, and then we can support them when not bad people do them. If there was some kind of January 6th movement that was led by leftists and activists and was being done in the name of economic justice or police violence or the climate, I would support it. I would say, yeah, the institutions of the United States government are fucking rotten and they should be overthrown. Absolutely. Of course, I agree with that. Unfortunately, that's not what these people were doing this about. They were doing it so the game show host president could still be in power. That's why I don't, even though I don't like the U.S. government, I'm not going to support this like weird crypto-fascist petty bourgeois movement that's just based on like wanting Trump to undemocratically remain president. That's the only thing that it's about. In the same way that I'm not going to support these weird convoy anti-lockdown protesters, because we don't actually agree, even though we might agree on the fundamental like democracy that we find ourselves in. We actually don't agree on like anything else beyond that basic idea. So I'm not going to go support them. They were let in and they walked in. It was the tamest riot in history, and the left is apoplectic. Meanwhile, BLM burns and loots the whole country, but that's okay. Actually, it is okay. Yeah. I agree. I actually agree with that. So you're right. I mean, famously, when those first, okay, here's the fucking annoying things about this goddamn argument about the BLM protests. First of all, they didn't just burn and loot the country and it was okay. Every single night, night after night, militarized police went into those protests and beat the fuck out of people and tear gassed people, arrested people undemocratically, shot them with rubber bullets. There was dozens of examples night after night throughout that entire protest of heavily militarized assault rifle wielding police officers going into those protests each and every night and escalating them into riots through state violence. There was hundreds of examples of brutal police violence throughout those protests. So the idea that this was just allowed to happen with no pushback is just not accurate, first and foremost. The second thing is, why were those George Floyd protests happening in the first place? Do people have a legitimate right to protest, I think, when agents of the state are just able to like murder people with impunity in the middle of the fucking street? That's a legitimate reason for people to protest. Protesting because you love the game show host president of America, the former president of the former host of The Apprentice, and you want him to be president so much that you go and run into the fucking Capitol building. That's like not a legitimate reason to be like you're fucking being a dumbass. You're being a dumbass. You're getting used by a billionaire con man to hold on to power. When you're protesting over police officers and using the endless perpetual right to beat people, imprison people unjustly, murder at any provocation, that's a legitimate thing to protest about. And that's something that people should protest about. Because you want to give Donald Trump hugs and smooches and you think he's going to give you a head pat if you go and you go break some shit in the Capitol building on his behalf, that's just pathetic. So, number one, these two things are completely different. Why these protests were happening in the first place. George Floyd protests are over a very legitimate and important reason. January 6th, not the case. Number two, those protests were not just allowed to go on forever, endlessly with no pushback. As I said before, it was every single night throughout those protests, they were met with brutal repression and police violence every single night. You support the cause protest, you don't support it riot. So you're not listening, Badgeration. You're not listening. Okay, banned. But again, those were peaceful protests that were being escalated to violent protests each and every night by the police, by the heavily militarized police. I got to go for 10 minutes, folks. I got to go pick up my kid from school. I thought I had more time, and I actually don't. I'm going to go get him right now. I'm going to come back in 10 minutes and we'll finish up. So don't go anywhere. I'll be back in a few minutes. Shit.
The wicked flee when no man pursueth. Yet it is sad to read these Soviet statements, to realize the extent of the gulf between us. But it is also a warning to the American people not to fall into the same trap as the Soviets. not to see only a distorted and desperate view of the other side, not to see conflict as inevitable, accommodation as impossible, and communication as nothing more than an exchange of threats. No government or social system is so evil that its people must be considered as lacking in virtue. As Americans, we find communism profoundly repugnant as a negation of personal freedom and dignity. But we can still hail the Russian people for their many achievements in science and space, in economic and industrial growth, in culture, in acts of courage. Among the many traits the peoples of our two countries have in common, none is stronger than our mutual abhorrence of war. Almost unique among the major world powers, we have never been at war with each other. And no nation in the history of battle ever suffered more than the Soviet Union in the Second World War. At least 20 million lost their lives. Countless millions of homes and families were burned or sacked. A third of the nation's territory, including 2/3 of its industrial base, was turned into a wasteland, a loss equivalent to the destruction of this country east of Chicago. Today, should total war ever break out again, no matter how, our two countries will be the primary target. It is an ironic but accurate fact that the two strongest powers are the two in the most danger of devastation. All we have built, all we have worked for, would be destroyed in the first 24 hours. And even in the Cold War, which brings burdens and dangers to so many countries, including this nation's closest allies, our two countries bear the heaviest burdens. For we are both devoting massive sums of money to weapons that could be better devoted to combat ignorance, poverty, and disease. We are both caught up in a vicious and dangerous cycle, with suspicion on one side breeding suspicion on the other, and new weapons begetting counter-weapons.
You can count on me. You're
both
going to have
the
good
United
old
States
Rob
and
to
its
talk you
allies,
through all this.
and the Soviet Union and its allies have a mutually deep interest in a just and genuine peace and in holding the arms race. Agreements to this end are in the interests of the Soviet Union as well as ours, and even the most hostile nations can be relied upon to accept and keep those treaty obligations, and only those treaty obligations which are in their own interest. So let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and the means by which those differences can be resolved. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal. Third, let us re-examine our attitude towards the Cold War, remembering we're not engaged in a debate, seeking to pile up debating points. We are not here distributing blame or pointing the finger of judgment. We must deal with the world as it is, and not as it might have been, had the history of the last 18 years been different. We must therefore persevere in the search for peace, in the hope that constructive changes within the communist bloc might bring within reach solutions which now seem beyond us. We must conduct our affairs in such a way that it becomes in the communist interest to agree on a genuine peace, and above all, while defending our own vital interests. Nuclear powers must avert those confrontations which bring an adversary to a choice of either a humiliating retreat or a nuclear war. To adopt that kind of course in the nuclear age would be evidence only of the bankruptcy of our policy or of a collective death wish for the world. To secure these ends, America's weapons are non-provocative, carefully controlled, designed to deter, and capable of selective use. Our military forces are committed to peace and disciplined in self-restraint. Our diplomats are instructed to avoid unnecessary irritants and purely rhetorical hostility, for we can seek a relaxation of tensions without relaxing our guard. And for our part, we do not need to use threats to prove we are resolute. We do not need to jam foreign broadcasts out of fear our faith will be eroded. We are unwilling to impose our system on any unwilling people, but we are willing and able to engage in peaceful competition with any people on earth. Meanwhile, we seek to strengthen the United Nations to help solve its financial problems, to make it a more effective instrument for peace, to develop it into a genuine world security system, a system capable of resolving disputes on the basis of law, of ensuring the security of the large and the small, and of creating conditions under which arms can finally be abolished. At the same time, we seek to keep peace inside the non-communist world, where many nations, all of them our friends, are divided over issues which weaken Western unity, which invite communist intervention, or which threaten to erupt into war. Our efforts in West New Guinea, in the Congo, in the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent have been persistent and patient, despite criticism from both sides. We have also tried to set an example for others by seeking to adjust small but significant differences with our own closest neighbors in Mexico and Canada. Speaking of other nations, I wish to make one point clear. We are bound to many nations by alliances. These alliances exist because our concern and theirs substantially overlap. Our commitment to defend Western Europe and West Berlin, for example, stands undiminished because of the identity of our vital interests. The United States will make no deal with the Soviet Union at the expense of other nations and other peoples, not merely because they are our partners, but also because their interests and ours converge. Our interests converge, however, not only in defending the frontiers of freedom, but in pursuing the paths of peace. It is our hope and the purpose of Allied policy to convince the Soviet Union that she too should let each nation choose its own future, so long as that choice does not interfere with the choices of others. The communist drive to impose their political and economic system on others is the primary cause of world tension today. For there can be no doubt that if all nations could refrain from interfering in the self-determination of others, the peace would be much more assured. This will require a new effort to achieve world law, a new context for world discussions. It will require increased understanding between the Soviets and ourselves. An increased understanding will require increased contact and communication. One step in this direction is the proposed arrangement for a direct line between Moscow and Washington to avoid on each side the dangerous delays, misunderstandings, and misreadings of others' actions which might occur at a time of crisis. We have also been talking in Geneva about our first step measures of arms controls, designed to limit the intensity of the arms race and reduce the risk of accidental war. Our primary long-range interest in Geneva, however, is general and complete disarmament, designed to take place by stages, permitting parallel political developments to build the new institutions of peace which would take the place of arms. The pursuit of disarmament has been an effort of this government since the 1920s. It has been urgently sought by the past 3 administrations. And however dim the prospects are today, we intend to continue this effort, to continue it in order that all countries, including our own, can better grasp what the problems and the possibilities of disarmament are. The only major area of these negotiations where the end is in sight, yet where a fresh start is badly needed, is in a treaty to outlaw nuclear tests. The conclusion of such a treaty, so near and yet so far, would check the spiraling arms race in one of its most dangerous areas. It would place the nuclear powers in a position to deal more effectively with one of the greatest hazards which man faces in 1963, the further spread of nuclear arms. It would increase our security. It would decrease the prospects of war. Surely this goal is sufficiently important to require our steady pursuit, yielding neither to the temptation to give up the whole effort, nor the temptation to give up our insistence on vital and responsible safeguards. I'm taking this opportunity, therefore, to announce two important decisions in this regard. First, Chairman Khrushchev, Prime Minister Macmillan, and I have agreed that high-level discussions will shortly begin in Moscow.
What's up? I'm back. Is JFK on some liberal bullshit right now? I'm seeing from the chat. I'm seeing some liberal bullshit in the chat. It seems like. Classic. Classic. Ah. There I am. Oh my God, King Ewan, we had a girlfriend have her in the chat, really? Oh my gosh. I can't tell if you're doing a bit. Or if is this Castella Fron in the room with you right now, King Uendo? This is like one of these things where we pretend we pretend to like indulge the fantasy. Oh, hello. Nice to meet you. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. She goes to a different school. I'm just joking. I'm just joshing around here. Does you know Manti Te'o's girlfriend? That's a callback. Remember that? That was a big deal for a while. The Manti Te'o's girlfriend phenomenon. A simpler time. Yeah. A simpler time. This is the predicted outcome. Fortunately, everyone knows how handsome I am, so it is easy to believe I am partnered up. You don't need to throw it in our faces like this. Okay? You don't need to throw it in everyone's faces. Oh, thank you, G. Kleppy, for gifting a sub also. Thank you, G. Kleppy, for gifting a sub to this Castellafran. Castelafran? I don't know. Castellafran. Thank you, G. Kleppy. I feel kind of bad for Manti Te'o. I don't think there was a lot of understanding when that stuff happened about like catfishing. I think now that we know a little bit more about it, it's a little bit more of a heartbreaking story in retrospect. I don't think he was just like making stuff up, right? I think a lot of people that have fallen victim to those kind of like catfishing scams, they'll often like, there's all this kind of really obvious stuff in retrospect to everyone that it's like they're in denial about. I don't know. I don't think he was just like making up a fake girlfriend. Maybe so. I don't know. I'm not sure. He's a pioneer of getting catfished. Absolutely. It's funny because he went to Notre Dame, but actually had no dame. He disrupted the catfishing industry. Very nice, Outrun. Very nice. You said Notre Dame word? Oh, sorry, Notre Dame. Is that better? Is that better to all the Yankees in the chat? Notre Dame. Head on over to Notre Dame. That's what you sound like to me. Yes, thank you. Yes, it is. Okay, I'm glad you all appreciate that. Want to make sure I respect everyone else's lived experience. Hua! Get my gun and go on down to Notre Dame. Okay. Well, thanks for waiting for me. I guess I'm gonna go in a bit, folks. I didn't want to just like immediately cancel the stream and leave. I thought I had until 4:30 today, but I realized because I was like, I had traveled yesterday and I was kind of disoriented from not sleeping. I kind of thought today was Wednesday. It is, of course, Thursday. So that's why I had to leave really suddenly. And I didn't want to just like end the whole stream. But I am going to go now. I have another podcast to do later at 7:30, so I'm going to take some time to not do this. It is Wednesday. It's Wednesday too. I got a lot of stuff coming up. I'm going like, this is a big weekend. I got a bunch of podcasting stuff I have to do. Big week filled with journalism and commentary. Nick is scheduled for King Ueno Monday. Monday, 2 p.m. Nick, let's go. Should be really good stuff. Okay. All right. I'm going to raid Kira again because like every single other channel is doing January 6th stuff. Best in the biz. Great stream. Thank you, Maxi. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching today. I enjoyed this one. I'm really, really happy that you enjoyed the Oliver Stone footage. I'm really glad that I did that. Sorry. I'm really happy that I went to that event yesterday. I'm really glad you enjoyed all the footage, enjoyed and enraged, but it was fun. It was fun to be enraged over it. Okay. That was great stuff. I will be back tomorrow. Not sure exactly what's going on tomorrow, but I'll be back noon Eastern, 1 a.m. Pyongyang time tomorrow and every other day. By the way, join the Discord server if you're not in there, so you get notifications when I go live. noon Eastern, 1 a.m. Pyongyang time. I will be back tomorrow for more fun stuff. Okay? Thank you again for watching. That's all. Kino for Comrades in the Discord. Go to the events section of the Discord and make sure you watch Doc Hollywood's specially curated film series, Kino for Comrades, in the Discord server. Talk to you tomorrow.